Low ball.
You know they
$4. I don't make 60.
Hey guys, welcome to Fox 5 Live here in Washington, D.C. We're here with Tom Fitz here from our newsroom.
You forgot my real name.
I know, I forgot his real name. I'm calling him Fitz. So our shot actually just froze, but we were just looking at a live shot of this rally, this march happening now in D.C. related to DACA, which
this is going to go on all day.
Yeah, so we're gonna have this feed for you guys all day. We just heard Jeff Sessions announce the decision on this. So
yeah, 11 o'clock today. Well, I mean, this was one of the worst kept secrets in Washington for the last couple days.
Right.
The DACA program. Remember, the D in DACA stands for deferred. It was not the permanent program. This was the deferred program. This came under Janet Napolitano when she was Secretary of Homeland Security, and you know, this is the point that we now know has been deferred too. And this is what's going to happen. 6 months from now, people who have not applied to have their DACA status extended are going to have that expired. And they will then be technically in the United States illegally. Now, there's a lot going on today by evidence of this, you know, protest about, oh my God, this has happened today. You know, I participated in a briefing this morning with Homeland Security, with ICE, with Customs and Border Protection. The big takeaway from that was that nothing today is going to happen to anyone that didn't happen yesterday. One of the things they stressed is that the big continuity on this from their standpoint was removing criminal illegal aliens. That doesn't mean everybody who's in the United States illegally. they mean criminals, people who have committed crimes. ICE made a very clear point of that this morning in their briefing to us, that they simply do not have the resources, they say, to go around the country and round up everybody who may have an expired DACA status in March. So what they will be focusing on are criminal illegal aliens in this country who are committing crimes. And that's a very big difference between anybody who is here illegally. And that is what they said this morning. Now, where does this go? This is not the be-all, end-all of this, because this 6 months supposedly is supposed to knock this ball into Congress's court. There's a bit of tennis going on here. The reason the rationale for this under the Obama administration was that Congress was not acting. So the Obama administration decided they had to act. So they put this into effect. And so it has remained until now. The gamble on this is, if you now say this is going to expire in March, and it is up to you, Congress, to now come up with a solution with this. Well, they didn't come up with a solution on it back in 2012. I don't know that anything has gone on in the last 9 months that indicates they're going to come up with any solution now. So this puts this on a countdown clock right now, and factor into this relationship that's been going on between the White House and the Capitol, which has not been getting. And a lot of Republicans are speaking out about this, that they believe DACA should remain as is. But there's a lot of finger pointing here on both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue. So far, nobody's really stepped up with a plan. This effectively is a repeal and replace situation we're in right now. The Obama administration program has been repealed, according to the White House. They're now turning to Congress to replace it, and it's not very clear whether or not Congress is going to have the will or the ability to do that. And that's going to leave a lot of people hanging in the balance. Some of these people who possibly could see the end of their DACA status have never known another country except the United States. Some of the people who are being covered in this program are adults. So a lot of this depends on what's going to happen on the Hill over the next couple of months. Are they going to be able to come to some kind of solution? Because what Jeff Sessions did today, what the president did today, was start the clock. We now know March 6th is when this program ends. They are not taking any more applications as of today, but they will have until March 2018 to figure this out. And if they don't figure it out, that is going to mean a very big change in the status of hundreds of thousands.
And so the countdown is on. And guys, we want to invite you to chat along with us too if you have thoughts and comments on this. We're going to be talking about it throughout the day as much as we have Fitz here too to talk about it. And like we said, we're getting in some footage. I don't think this is actually the rally, but we'll have it.
This is New York. That's Trump Tower.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Do you have that up?
I do, but let's go there.
Yeah.
This is another rally.
Yeah, so this is Trump Tower. This is Fifth Avenue. This is actually where I was the morning after the election. And that building has now become the focus of what's been going on in this country. You're going to see these rallies. You're looking at New York City right now. You're going to see these rallies in every major city across the United States. Because
lots of police. Look at that.
Well, certainly we're already seeing some arrests.
Yeah.
Too.
So when we talk about briefly, because we're going to play this out for you guys too. Jeff Sessions announced this morning. Let's back it up and talk about why did he make this announcement?
Well, I'll tell you, if you look at what Jeff Sessions' position on this has been, before he was Attorney General, when he was the United States Senator, Jeff Sessions has held the position that this is an executive overreach of power. That when this country was created, it was created in a system. Congress was supposed to write the laws. The president was supposed to either sign or not sign the laws, or then propose legislation. The result of this letter in Sessions' office basically created a whole new way of creating law. A way of creating law that was never intended to work this way. We don't have a king in this country. We don't have a monarch. We don't have somebody that rules by decree. This is supposed to be a legislative process of the executive branch and the judicial branch and the executive branch. The 2012 letter that created DACA was an end around all of it. And Sessions' position is this. If they were to let this stand, they were already on notice in Texas and several other states that there was going to be federal lawsuits filed on this. The Justice Department was going to be forced into a position where they were going to defend this. So then you were going to have one of the chief critics of DACA, Jeff Sessions, in a position where he was going to defend a law that he thought was unconstitutional to begin with. That was going to be a non-starter from the get-go. So that was never going to happen. You know, anybody who's surprised by this today should not have been surprised, because the writing was on the wall when this election happened. I said from November, elections have consequences. Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States, going back to when he was the United States Senator, was one of the largest critics of this. And we knew, we could see all of the signs that this was coming. But, you know, I want to stress this briefing I was in this morning. You know, nothing that is happening today from ICE, from Homeland Security, from Customs and Border Protection, there's not, they say there are not going to be any mass sweeps. There are not going to be mass importations today. They are starting a clock on what the new normal is. The new normal is that we're not going to have an open-ended forever DACA, because the very nature that it was deferred indicated that there was going to be some resolution to this till they moved on to the next thing, and they're now moving on to the next thing in March.
So now the countdown is for next March,
yes,
2018.
March 6th.
You guys are still looking at a shot here in New York City. Like we said, these rallies going to go on all day in the big cities, right? And we talked about the states that this that sort of brought this to a forefront, right?
Well,
were
Texas was going to file. Texas, well, yeah. I mean, Texas already notified them that they were going to file suit. I'm looking at my phone because we're getting some statements in here now from members of Congress.
We'll get some updates coming at you guys. Just a reminder, guys, check it out. You're looking at a nice newsroom shot, our brand new shot of our newsroom. Hope you enjoy it. I know. Enjoy our little fishbowl. We're going to be bringing this to you throughout the week.
You like being out of your closet?
I like it. If I have some air, it's not as hot. I mean, it's not as hot. Got the lights. It's great.
Kind of had you in a fishbowl there for a while.
I know. And now we have a little fishbowl
kind
of camera.
We like having you in the newsroom.
I like being with people.
It's lovely. You get to see people walk by, they smile, they wave. You're not locked away.
If you guys are regulars on the show, you know it's a little different.
Let's get into some details. This. All right. So they make this announcement at 11 o'clock this morning. The government.
Play for you guys.
We're going to play that in a
bit after.
But I'll give you the highlights before we get into it. So the government announced they're going to stop processing these new applications under President Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, known as DACA. Now, the program's provided nearly 800,000 young immigrants a delay from deportation and given them the ability to legally work in the United States. But this is where the clock comes in, because you're now starting in a situation where you've got 6 months for Congress to come up with a replacement program for people that are currently covered by DACA. That's the big question. Is Congress going to be able to do this? Is Congress going to be able to come up with something to replace this? Now, the president, in his tweet manner,
I saw that. I'm actually going to bring that up.
That this is going to be ultimately up to Congress to decide of the fate of those people who are protected by the program right now. And that would seem to suggest that Jeff Sessions has a very big voice in how this is proceeding, because Jeff Sessions has been one of the biggest proponents for sending this back to Congress to let Congress come up with a solution on this.
This was his tweet?
Yeah.
Oh, he retweeted this?
Yeah.
Was that the? So let me find this, bring this to you guys.
Well, you see it right there, though, in that one. Make no mistakes, we're going to put the interest of American citizens first.
He retweeted this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. All right, while we bring this to you.
It's interesting. Are we looking at Trump Tower?
Yeah, it's still Trump Tower. This is New York. And I wonder what it's like outside the Trump Hotel here.
Well, there's going to be a rally today at 1:30. We know of at Massachusetts Avenue, starting at 1:30 today. By 4 o'clock, that is slated to move over to Lafayette Park.
Right, so they're rushing from somewhere to
Yeah, they're going to
Lafayette
rally.
Park?
They're going to rally on Massachusetts Avenue.
Right.
By 4 o'clock, they're supposed to be over Lafayette Park in the White House. You know, that locale is going to be interesting because technically that is governed by U.S. Park Police, and if groups do not have permitting in those areas, you know, the U.S. Park Police. Well, I mean, the U.S. Park Police might make a determination as to whether or not that's going to be allowed to continue in that location. We'll have to, don't want to jump to conclusions here. Let's see if the government shows up.
Yeah. So his tweets were kind of a mix of things. He said, "Big week coming up." That was this week. This one.
Well, the big week coming up was about the biggest understatement you could possibly imagine. Everything that's going on.
There's nothing going on.
And
yeah.
remember the setup here. Congress comes back. You've got the debt ceiling. You need to stave off a government shutdown, which the president has threatened if he doesn't get funded for his bill. You've got about $8 billion that needs to be come up with for the Hurricane Irma, and now we have thrown DACA into the middle of this. Just by way of the calendar, September, the end of September, the debt ceiling has to be priority one because the government will shut down if they're not able to do this. However, this is going to now dominate Capitol Hill. We know the Republicans would like to be talking about tax cuts right now. Remember, they've got a midterm election coming up, in a year and 1 month. And Republicans need to go out and have something to run. They would like to have that tax cut in their back pocket when they go back out there and they meet the voters. The tax cut, because of this, just got publicly pushed back. They're still working on it. They still want to get it. Is anybody talking about the tax cut today? No, they're talking about DACA. So that's what imperils this, because every time the Republicans have tried to advance something, be it, Obamacare replace, now the tax cut, they thought they had moved on from the health care thing now. They got a month under their belt from the August recess. It doesn't look like anybody's going to be talking or focusing on tax cut right now. They're going to be focusing on DACA, and they're going to be focusing on the fact now that if Congress cannot come up with a solution to this, that is going to be yet another situation where this Republican-controlled Congress may have run into a situation where they're not able to act on something to act.
Wow, so lots of implications in this one, guys. Yeah, you're continuing to look at this shot in New York City. We're going to see if we get DCs as well.
I got to tell you something. Since we've been watching so many of your webcasts, we need to urge you to, in addition to saying guys, to recognize the girls that are out there.
Hey, ladies.
Guys and gals.
Hey, you do. I say guys a lot. I'm Northerner. What can I say? New England.
See, we watch.
Yeah, you do.
We watch.
You do. Thanks, Fitz.
But you only talk about guys.
I know. I do. You're right.
So what are we looking at?
It's like Bob.
Still New York City?
Yeah, this is New York City. Right now, it looks like the governor of Texas, there's Greg Abbott, talking about Harvey stuff.
Well, you look at the governor of Texas right now, he's got to be wondering right
now. Is that...
Want to bring that up?
Yeah, we'll bring it up.
All right. So it's Governor Greg Abbott. They're looking for $8 billion out of Washington right now.
Understanding that 95%
of
hospitals in the greater Houston area are functional. There are 106 hospitals that are fully functional in the greater Houston region. Four hospitals that remain closed, 2 that are operating on internal disaster status. In the Beaumont area, no hospitals are closed, but 3 remain on internal disaster status. 20 are fully operational. In the Victoria area, 1 hospital remains closed. 1 is on internal disaster status. 9 in that region are operational. In the Corpus Christi area, 2 hospitals are closed. 1 is on internal disaster status, and 15 are fully operational. I want to talk about some current and looming healthcare-based issues. A key issue that we are focused on is vector control for mosquitoes. We have the state of Texas has a vector control task force working with local officials as well as working with federal HHS as well as Federal Department of Defense. We are prioritizing areas for aerial spraying. Local spraying has already begun. State spraying should begin this week. The Department of Defense will help with wide area spraying. I know that issues arise often about funding. I want to talk more as we go along at appropriate times about funding, but 100% of the funding for all of the vector control spraying will be paid by the federal government for spraying that is done within the first 30 days. That's one reason why we want to increase this effort and ramp it up quickly and aggressively at this time. First, obviously, so that we can control what could be a meaningful mosquito outbreak, especially at this still hot time of the year. And I think if we can do an aggressive job of containing this over the first 30 days after the storm, we will be able to get it under control. Next is healthcare-based issues that Texans face as they go through the rebuilding phase. An issue that people need to be aware of as they go back into their homes and begin working in their homes is tetanus. And we are urging every family member who are back in their homes that have gone through contaminated flooding waters and debris to contact either your own doctor or a local public health department to make sure that you are either up to date on tetanus or that you go ahead and get a tetanus shot. The same applies for bacterial infections. It's a byproduct of people who have been in the flood waters or people who are working in homes that have been flooded. Again, we urge you to contact your own local physician or your local public health department. While cleaning, it's important for your personal health that you strive to follow certain hygiene standards that will reduce the risk of having health-related problems. Use gloves, use masks, use ventilation for your home, meaning open up doors and windows. Be sure to put bandages on scrapes and cuts to try to prevent contracting an infection. And obviously be sure to throw away any type of perishable food once you return home. Moving over to roads, TxDOT continues to work aggressively to open up roads as fast as possible. However, there are still 118 roads that remain closed. The good news is that I-10 is now open. However, ongoing assessments will be needed to ensure that the quality standards are sufficient for the heavy traffic that will be coming. No interstate is closed in the state of Texas. Around the Houston region, importantly, Highway 59 is now open. But here again, all these open roads will need ongoing inspection. As a result, caution is needed for drivers driving on any of these roads, understanding that we cannot yet confirm the high quality status of what is to be expected from these roads, but we are working to do that as quickly as possible. Also, it's worth emphasizing that there still remain some areas in the state of Texas where there could be water on roads and potential flooding from certain rivers. So it's essential that people remain vigilant about not driving into roads that have water on them so that you're not swept away, or that if there is low-lying water, you be very careful when you drive across those roads. I think that is it. Let me take a few questions.
Governor, do you have any thoughts about whether there should be some kind of effort in Congress to do something about DACA that would prevent the deportation of so many people?
Well, listen, from the very beginning, it's been clear that the United States Constitution, on its face, provides that the responsibility for dealing with immigration is assigned to the congressional, to the legislative branch of government, not to the president. And as a result, it is the responsibility of the legislative branch of government to address the issue.
Would you give them any advice?
Listen, these are issues for the federal government, for Congress. Again, the architectural design is for Congress to address it, and it is right for Congress to address it.
Governor, so at this time, you have no specific guidance for what you, as a border state governor, would like to see Congress do?
Yeah, I expect Congress to address it. Listen, understand this. It is a multifaceted challenge and issue for Congress to address. What I, both as Attorney General and as Governor, are looking for is for Congress to play its role. As Majority Leader McCarthy pointed out, they want to tackle the issue. I think latitude needs to be given to Congress to tackle the issue.
What do you tell the thousands of DACA enrollees who are here in Texas now? Are they welcome here, or how should they prepare for this?
The way they prepare for it will be determined by the federal government.
Do you have any concerns as to now that the DACA issue is out there, that's going to somehow impair getting enough skilled workers into Texas to keep the recovery moving quickly, that it might slow that process?
Yeah. Answer is no.
Okay. What about Tropical Storm Irma, Hurricane Irma?
Listen, obviously the United States is very concerned about Irma's pathway. Our early projections, I'll call it premature projections, are that Texas does not have to be concerned about it. But with these storms, who knows? We share our concern with our fellow Americans about its impact on the East Coast. I have spoken with the Florida governor about it to collaborate with him with regard to the resources that currently exist in the state of Texas that he may need access to depending upon what may happen. And so we shall see. But we are hoping for the best for both Florida, for any impacted region.
Congress on Wednesday is scheduled to vote on the initial supplemental and initial funding for the disaster relief. What message would you have for them as they vote on this, for the $7 billion or whatever?
Pass it.
But this is the first of an installment that Texas is going to need.
Right. Very importantly, here at this building, I had a meeting with Majority Leader McCarthy, Congressman McCall, and Senator Cornett. And the attitude was upbeat and positive about what they expect to achieve, both in the short term as well as in the long term. The leaders of Congress, including comments made by Speaker Ryan, who has said that they want to step up and ensure that the needs of Texans are addressed. I feel confident that Texas is going to get the resources they need from the federal government. Because of the timing of where we are in the budget cycle, it is appropriate for them to use the funding strategies they're using here in the month of September. with them having said, and also me, when Leader McCarthy was here, we also spoke with Mike Mulvaney. And so we're looking at the multi-step process for funding tranches to ensure that over time, Texas is going to receive the resources that we need, understanding the magnitude of this storm. And everyone in the federal government I've spoken to understands the magnitude of the storm is either the largest or one of the largest natural disasters that we've had in the history of this country. And as a result, it needs a Texas-sized response from Washington, D.C.
Have you spoken directly with the head of the EPA regarding its handling of the flooded websites in Houston?
My conversation has been with the regional administrator for the EPA about what they're doing. And every information I have is that the EPA is on top of the issue.
Can you update on refineries coming back online, the pace of that?
Right. There were some refineries that had come back online as of yesterday. I think one is Valero, I think another is ExxonMobil. And you can expect refineries to accelerate coming back online. If you look at gasoline futures over the past 24 hours, they have dropped dramatically in price, showing that the market fully expects gasoline to come flooding back into the market.
Governor, you just outlined a number of ways in which control of improvement, receiving waters, open highways. It's been more than a week. What's your overall assessment of where we stand as far as is the worst behind us?
Well, the worst part of any catastrophe like this is the loss of life. And we hope we are at a stage and believe that we are at a stage where there should be no more loss of life. It doesn't mean that we won't find more lives that were lost. We probably will as the waters continue to recede. But we should be beyond the loss of life. That means we get into the longer term process of the build out from this enormous disaster. And we all need to come to grips with the reality that the build out is going to take a very long time. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But we are all in this together. And understand this from my perspective. One of my primary goals as governor right now is to do everything I can to work with mayors and county judges to make sure that they are going to have the resources and tools they need to build out. We're all in this together. It doesn't matter what city you are, where you're located. I'm here to be a facilitator to help them achieve their goal, which is to rebuild as quickly as possible.
We gotta go. That's all I got time for.
Thank you.
You thought last week, do you expect them to continue?
Oh, no, they will continue with a little bit, I mean, at least on a weekly basis for now.
So, guys, while you're
I think you
watching
guys may
Texas
know
Governor Greg Abbott finish up here, we're actually looking at,
going on.
in
You know
the
my
right corner of your
schedule today, I
screen,
assume.
a march
will,
to confront white supremacy from Charlottesville to D.C.
Yeah, they started this from the location of where the statue was in Charlottesville, and the goal here is to raise awareness of what they see as a rise of hate speech in the country. So they've been marching all the way from Charlottesville, Virginia, right into Washington, D.C. It's hard to judge from this helicopter shot right now. I'm guessing they're somewhere in Fairfax County at this point. It looks like they're about to run out of sidewalk as well, too.
Right.
But I don't know how long this helicopter is going to be able to maintain the shot, because at some point you're going to be entering the airspace of the Washington, D.C. restricted area, so I don't know that they'll be able to continue. But, I mean, it looks to be, a pretty sizable crowd. Probably I would put that somewhere between 75 and 100 people.
Yeah, they were saying about 100.
From what I know, there's been a bus that's been traveling with them, carrying sleeping bags and other things for them to sleep with,
So they pit stop, do the
yeah,
journey.
so they'll they've been marching for hours. At the end of the day, they'll stop for the night, and then they picked it up again today. From what I understand, barring any weather that might pop up later today, that the goal is that they are supposed to conclude this at some point this afternoon. So, factor into that what's already going on in Washington today, where we're going to have these DACA protests throughout the city. Now you're going to be having this group of protesters coming in, not protesters, but marchers,
activists,
speaking out about, hate speech in this country. So, the physical manifestation of a lot of these controversies that we've been dealing with right now, you don't have to look very far around the streets of Washington at various point to see it, in the flesh, as it were.
Yep.
And here they come. You can see them carrying their signs. There appear to be, that looks to me like to be an escort group on the right side of the screen right there that are following them, because that clearly is not proper road speed for this area.
You were saying, though, they also have escorts to bring lodging stuff?
There appears to be another support bus that's been carrying sleeping bags, things like that, for them to have areas to sleep.
Might be behind them.
This appears to be a local road they're on right now. And obviously I believe that is a police car behind them at the top of the screen. So, you want to do that to ensure there's a truck right there. You want to do that to ensure that you're not going to have any situation where the marchers and the traffic are going to be in the same lane, because the last thing you want to see here is somebody become the subject of some kind of physical problem with a pedestrian vehicle incident.
Yeah, so as this chopper sort of pans out, we're going to go back to this coverage of DACA. It looks like we have a little bit of a rally, maybe some speeches going on. Let's go there.
3 hijos y tengo miedo de que en 6 meses me puedan separar de ellos. No los voy a llevar a México, en donde no tienen las mismas oportunidades que aquí. Ellos son nacidos aquí y tienen el derecho de vivir en este país. Voy a luchar con mi comunidad hasta el final para que obtengamos una solución a este problema.
Yeah, guys, so like we mentioned, these are going on all over the country. Sorry. We're all leaning in to watch this. So these are going on all over the country. This is actually in Phoenix. I know this was briefly in Spanish, so we'll see. Maybe this all is.
When our community is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
When our trans community is under attack, what do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
My name is Francisco Luna, Francisco Luna, Luna. I'm an organizer with Transcure Pueblo. And like many other here, I'm angry, I'm upset, and I'm sad. I'm sad because when I think of families, I think of my family. I think of my partner. And I think of their dreams. I think of my dreams. This decision is an attack in our community. Like many others, it allows us to come out of the shadows. Back in 2012, I came out of the shadows when DACA was announced, but I knew that it wasn't enough. DACA does not define me. DACA does not define my community. It provided us with opportunities. It gave us hope. Let's not lose that hope. And although for many of us, we had accomplished our dreams, let's keep fighting for those dreams. Let's keep doing the right thing. Let's fight for everybody. We're often criminalized because of the color of our skin. We're incarcerated just because our last names are foreign. Mi nombre es Francisco Luna, F-R-A-N-C-I-S-O. Luna, L-U-N-A. Soy organizador de Transcure Pueblo. Y como todos aquí, estoy enojado, estoy triste. Pero como muchos de nosotros tuvimos la oportunidad de salir de
All right, guys, while he's speaking there, we're going to kind of come back into the newsroom and talk to you more about these statements that just came out regarding...
My phone is
he's
blowing
up, and he's going to be going downtown, right? You're going...
Yeah, we're gonna go down in a little while. But let me give you a couple of the quick takes on some of these statements that are coming out of the Hill. Let me start with Mayor Bowser. This coming out just a few minutes ago. It's Mayor Muriel Bowser from Washington. D.C. just a few minutes ago saying, I have joined leaders from around the country in urging President Trump to preserve DACA. Today on call on Congress to quickly pass the DREAM Act so that dreamers across the country can continue to build a safer, stronger, more prosperous community. So the mayor not exactly blasting the president, but also making it pretty clear she wants a long-term solution to this. White House out with a statement just a short time ago detailing in long form what they've titled President Trump Restoring Responsibility and the Rule of Law to Immigration. And we referenced the president's earlier tweet that his priority are going to be to focus on Americans. Don Beyer, congressman out of Virginia, out with a statement this morning. President Trump's decision to end DACA and begin deporting our dreamers betrays nearly 1 million young people who grew up in this country, as many of their own have made contributions to it. Congress has no choice to begin to act immediately, and it should be consideration of the American Hope Act to protect dreamers. That's Don Beyer, congressman out of Virginia. Let's go over to League of Women Voters. Not exactly a group known for firebrand statements. However, the League of Women Voters is out with this today. This administration's decision to rescind the Dreamers program is shameful and does not serve the national interest. As a country of immigrants, we are made stronger by our diversity, yet time and time again, this administration has discriminated against immigrants and communities of color. That's pretty strong words out of the League of Women Voters. Jerry Connolly, congressman out of Virginia, out with a statement this morning saying, Dreamers are Americans. They are not pawns. They are not aliens. They embrace the values of America. To uproots our own values. 800,000 Dreamers contribute $460 billion to our economy and $24 billion to Social Security and Medicare. It is self-defeating to disrupt their economic contributions. This is ugly, and this is un-American. That's Congressman Jerry Connolly out of Virginia.
No, you have a lot of statements coming into your
The
staff.
phone is white hot blowing up right now. I want to get to a statement from, keep talking for a moment, Tom, while you call up Andy Harris. Because Andy Harris is the one member of Congress in the DMV, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, who has been a proponent and a supporter of President Trump's actions on a lot of different areas. And Harris came out with a statement this morning which is in stark contrast to what a lot of the other people have said. See if the phone wants to cooperate. Here we go. All right. Phone wanted to cooperate this morning. This is a statement from Andy Harris saying that the Attorney General Jeff Sessions announcing the end of the policy known as DACA. This policy allowed illegal immigrants brought to the United States as children to request deferred action of their immigration status. So this is what Congressman Harris out of Maryland, a Republican out of Maryland, has to say. I strongly support President Trump's decision to end the deferred action for childhood arrivals. The Obama-era policy is a gross overreach of executive power and undermine the authority of the legislative branch. President Trump is returning that power to Congress, unquote. So support from Congressman Andy Harris this morning. And there was one other statement I wanted to get to that came from the group FAIR. Now, FAIR is the group that is in support of rescinding a lot of the Obama administration immigration moves and replacing them with something else. And this is what FAIR has to say. My old eyes are going to have to zoom
Let's
this
hear
out.
it.
The Federation for American Immigration Reform applauds the president's decision to wind down the DACA program. In our view, DACA was an unconstitutional abuse of executive authority by President Obama. Before implementing the program in 2012, President Obama stated on 22 previous occasions that he did not have the power to grant de facto amnesty and work authorization to an entire class of illegal aliens. His subsequent efforts to grant similar blanket deferments were found to be unconstitutional by the courts, and that goes on as well. So, you know, what you're seeing here is some expected fault lines between conservatives who have been opposed to a lot of the things that existed under the Obama administration when it came to immigration, and progressive Democrats, liberals, who are I would say not exactly thrilled with everything that President Obama did, but certainly are in opposition to what happened here today by the Trump administration. And what the key is going to be, though, is where are the Republicans on this? Because we got a statement out of Paul Ryan today, the Speaker of the House, which I could read to you, but I'll basically just sum it up and tell you this was neither fish nor fowl.
Right.
It was pretty clear that, Paul Ryan was saying that we have 3 areas of government. Yes, we know that. It was also pretty clear that Paul Ryan said he did not like DACA. Yes, we knew that. But he also said that there was a lot of work for Congress to do, and certainly we know that now because they're on this 6-month clock. So it's going to be very interesting to see, and I know that's an old, often used cliche, very interesting. We need to see where Paul Ryan lands out on this, because this is now in the Republicans' lap, up in the House, up in the Senate. They've got a midterm election coming up in November of 2018. They had wanted to be talking about tax cuts today. Nobody is talking about tax cuts today. They're talking about this. So if they want to get to that conversation, if they want to get to that focus, they've got to take care of this. And oh, by the way, they got to avoid a government shutdown and come up with $8 billion in Harvey relief. So
a lot on their plate this week, just like we were talking about. Well, thanks so much, Fitz.
You okay?
You hanging around? Yeah.
No, I gotta go.
You're gonna go. So he's gonna go downtown. You're gonna follow one of the marches this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll keep watching.
Well, yeah, good.
Joe's
here.
Oh
yeah, you're with Joe.
Joe watches too.
Photon.
I
Guys,
told her how we. See, you just did it again.
I
told her
guys.
we were watching the other day, and Nolly only says guys.
Sorry to the ladies out there. You guys know
Folks.
I say you guys. I know. I
folks.
try to say folks. It's a tough one.
All kinds of people.
This is our Photog Joe. He'll be downtown with Fitz, and hopefully you guys will feedback what you have. I'd love to see the action.
That's either a question or an order. We're not sure which one.
It's usually going to be followed by a text.
Yes.
Multiple
Make
texts.
snap.
All right.
Thanks,
guys.
for
having me. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you. All right, guys, so we're going to switch gears coming up here in a second to talk about weather and the looming hurricane that is brewing in the Caribbean. If you guys didn't know about that, it's about to touch Florida. We're going to get meteorologist Mike Thomas in here in just a second. So we'll keep you on this shot of the rally in Phoenix for now to check in, and then we'll come back with you in the newsroom. Thanks for watching. How do you want to do this? So I'm going to say, an emotional morning for DACA recipients and supporters. It began about a third of a mile away from where we are, where they watched the announcement live, and ended right here in front of ICE headquarters. Right? I think can we just do a third of a mile away and here? Okay. Great.
3, 2. About an hour after the announcement, the group marched to ICE headquarters here, chanting, holding signs saying despite this announcement, they will not hide. Congress now has 6 months to come up with a legislative solution as the lives of about 800,000 immigrants is up in the balance. Nope.
So guys, like we told you, these rallies are going to be going on all day in all different cities across the U.S. We have a shot of Denver right here, also down in Florida, currently in Orlando. We're going to bring that over for you guys. Just another protest. Protesters are outside City Hall here protesting the decision to end DACA. So we're going to check in there. And like I said, I'm going to get Mike Thomas in here in just a second to talk about the hurricane.
Reflects on the entire Trump administration and their the way that they see the immigrant community since the administration came into office. Their rhetoric has been hateful, it's been divisive, and we don't stand for it. We understand from his announcement they're planning on discontinuing the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program within 6 months. And they are saying that they will no longer issue any new renewals for any of you who have benefited from it. Nearly 900,000 young people who have received temporary work permits and have been able to buy homes, buy cars, get jobs, pay taxes, contribute billions of dollars to our U.S. economy, and all of that is in jeopardy now with this decision. We are also here because we know of another program that is in danger by the same administration, the Temporary Protected Status Program. Though it's a little different, and it was granted, because of humanitarian crisis in foreign countries. Many of the countries who have TPS, those people have been living here for decades. And some of those decisions are around the corner. So we're making sure that we bring attention to that. The people of Haiti, the people of Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, there are nearly 300,000 of them who could also lose their temporary work permits, whose lives are also on the line. And so we are here also standing together to say we must save TPS. Yeah. And so now we really want to highlight the voices of the people who were directly affected. This isn't about us, it's about them and how we are committed to their futures, to their families. And so first I'd like to introduce Eli Garcia.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we are going to switch gears totally and come back into the newsroom here. I'm here, special guests. All right, Mike Thomas and Caitlin Roth. You guys remember, I have them in from time to time. So we're going to talk weather, and there's a huge hurricane brewing in the Caribbean.
Yes, yeah. By the way, we gave Tucker his birthday off. So
oh, right.
Happy birthday, Tucker.
I'm working off all that birthday cake.
Yeah, right. Lots and lots of birthday cake.
So much fun. It looked really gorgeous. You did a great
I wish I could say I made it.
Chocolate.
Thank you, the Cake Room in Adams Morgan. You're the best.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, great spot.
All right, let's chat about this hurricane. Take that. It is a
where do we look here? I forget.
Big time
right here.
storm.
Okay, gotcha.
Big time storm up there.
Yeah, we'll take this off.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I spent a lot of time this morning just staring at it.
I mean,
incredible storm.
Yeah, well, it's massive. It's a Cat 5. That's as strong as they get for hurricanes. Max wind speeds.
This is a good time to throw in. There is no such thing as a Category 6 storm.
There were some rumors going around the web yesterday. You know, how did these things even get started? That Irma would warrant a Cat 6 categorization, but there is no such thing. And the plus on Cat 5 wind speeds of 155 miles an hour plus, that plus goes and goes. So
Right.
Yeah.
I think at one time they were talking about
Really?
maybe doing it just because to keep the scale even at Cat 6 would start at like 175, but they did not do that.
No, so it is a Cat 5 storm with max winds, sustained winds of 180 miles an hour as of 11 a.m. this morning, and that's getting into record territory.
Yeah, I think it's like tied for number 3 or something like that. So Allen back in 1980 had 190 mile an hour winds, strongest ever. And then you had a couple, including, I believe, Rita and Katrina?
Wilma.
Wow, there's so many
And I thought
history.
maybe Katrina, too, was up at around 185.
Okay.
And now we're at 180. So we're like top 7, I think, is what I tweeted out earlier.
Okay.
For now. But this thing could still strengthen over the next 12 hours because it's still over open water.
So where is it, and what's in danger right now?
The northern Leeward Islands, all of which we were trying to figure out names for.
Yeah, like Antigua, Anguilla.
St. Martin, I know.
St. Martin,
you know.
I keep saying St. Martin. He knows that one. St. Kitts, Turks and Caicos, and Puerto Rico.
Man.
They're all under hurricane warnings right now.
Anybody honeymooning there right now is that's dangerous.
Trouble. I mean, they deal with this stuff all the time.
Yeah, they know.
They know, so they know how to prepare. They know how to do evacuations.
Okay.
They know where. They have shelters there. They'll make it through. You know, the people there, as long as they're prepared, will make it through all right. But there's going to be damage. It's going to be a lot of damage for areas that take the brunt of this. One thing we need to mention, Caitlin, you can talk about this, is that the winds. So when we say 180 mile an hour winds, that is not everybody under that white sheet of the hurricane. That's only kind of confined to the area right around the eye of the storm.
Around the eye, which is in the middle.
And it's the max sustained wind, so that's just the highest reading of a wind speed that the hurricane hunters were able to find. So yeah, the whole storm, which I don't know the diameter of it,
about 350 miles. I kind of did some measuring earlier.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm a nerd.
You are
okay, that's
super
okay.
into it.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yes. But that's a huge storm, and but it's not, top to bottom wind speeds of 180 miles an hour, because that would decimate every single island in the Caribbean. But those are wind speeds around the eye, which is the strongest part of the storm, and that eye is so well seen.
Right.
As we take a look at that high-res satellite right there. But anyways, it is expected to maintain that strength as it pushes into the Leeward Islands tonight, and then by tomorrow morning, approaching Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
So,
and the good news for Puerto Rico is that
scary.
it does look like it'll pass to their north enough that they won't get the full-on effect.
it's all about where that eye goes over. If it's going over any of the land masses that we just mentioned, which it doesn't look like it is. It looks like it's passing just north, right?
Right, for the most part. Although I thought that the latest stuff maybe that's why I know St. Martin so well, is because the eye wall was getting awfully close to there. So they could possibly see a landfall. But those islands are so small that it's on and off pretty quick. And then it's back in open water and kind of holding onto its strength. The bigger islands, if you want to take the track now, there's the track. So you can see the latest info there. 180, as Caitlin mentioned. Pressure is actually up a bit, I think. It was down to like 926. It's up to 931. That, by the way, is how we kind of can gauge whether or not a hurricane is strengthening or weakening. So look at that central pressure. And it hasn't moved that much. And it'll
cycle
bounce.
through a bit. Yeah, it'll bounce. But anyways, this is the latest track from the National Hurricane Center that they put out every 3 hours. This is the 11 a.m. update. And they do continue with taking Irma on a west-northwest path through the islands, the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, and then just as it does have a weakening from a Cat 5 to a Cat 4 as it crosses Hispaniola, or goes just north of Hispaniola. I want to say that it's not really crossing any land masses in any of this path, even as a Cat 4 by late Friday, early Saturday morning, it's going over the northern coast of Cuba, and then NHC's path has it going out until about Sunday at 8 a.m. approaching the Keys, Key West specifically as a Cat 4.
Right. And look at that cone of uncertainty as well. So that, of
Explain
course,
that, Mike.
all lines go straight to the center. I mean, you see the 5, you see the 4, you're thinking, okay, it's going to go right down the middle there. Not necessarily. That cone is what we like to call the cone of uncertainty, which means really there's a chance that the storm could go anywhere within that cone. And you see as it expands north towards Florida and south into Cuba near the end of that time period. First off, 150-mile-an-hour winds, yes, not a Cat 5 but a Cat 4, but super strong. I mean, Harvey only hit with 130-mile-an-hour winds. I think last year when Matthew came up, it was like a Cat 2 or Cat 3. So serious storm regardless. It does have other ways to weaken. If it takes the southern edge of that path, then Hispaniola and Cuba would take a beating, that's for sure. But those mountains along both Hispaniola and Cuba that they have, the highlands, could help disrupt the structure of the storm a bit and cause some weakening. So that would kind of be a saving grace a little bit. If it takes a farther track east, maybe it doesn't make landfall in Florida but gets awfully close. At this point, from everything we've seen, Caitlin, don't you think that southern Florida is going to feel some effects?
Yeah.
It may not be a landfall.
Yeah.
And we'll keep our fingers crossed it's not.
Right. But they are bracing, and for good reason, because in most of the model runs over the past 48 hours now, South Florida has received some sort of impact, whether it was a direct landfall or like a side swipe, and this would be a very strong side swipe. And that really has varied. You know, late last night, some of the models, or one of the models, the Euro, took it up the west side, which we haven't seen that track very much, but that's why that cone of uncertainty exists. So you can see it encompasses all of South Florida, from Fort Myers, Naples, down through the Everglades, and then back up through Miami, West Palm, and Fort Lauderdale. So that's why with the shifting model runs, and you know, even 30 miles makes a huge difference between, are you going to hit Miami or stay out to sea? That's why all of South Florida, including the Keys, actually are in that cone, and it can change. But yes, South Florida is bracing for this storm.
Okay, and on Monday, Governor Rick Scott in Florida declared a state of emergency, so that was further. Okay.
Which is smart. I mean, it's better especially with a storm of this power, to be safe than sorry.
Right. I mean, and it never hurts to have a plan in place and be hurricane ready. I think a lot of people in South Florida, if they're lifers, they're used to this. And it's been a while since they've received a hit from a hurricane. It's been like 12 years, a while. So it's been a long time. But, you know, a lot of people live in flood-prone areas or are on coastal property and have to put plans into place. And the more notice they can get, the better. I mean, Irma formed last Thursday, I believed, and it takes a while for the path to become clear. But we do have some, I guess, certainty that it's headed in the direction of Florida. So it's good that they're preparing.
Okay.
The hardest thing from this point forward is determining, okay, if it hits the U.S., where's your point of landfall?
Yeah,
exactly. We've had models say it's going to miss Florida just south. Again, it'll still get effects, but it won't make landfall just south, and then get into the eastern Gulf and come up. We've had models say it's going to go right up Florida, which is a strange track. I'm young, but in my career, I've never seen a hurricane go straight up Florida like that. A more common track that we often see is one that some of the newer models coming in right now are starting to show, which is maybe it shaves up the eastern coastline. Matthew was a Category 5 storm last year. Was the strongest storm in a decade. And it went up the East Coast and then made landfall in South Carolina, I think, briefly. And then went out to sea after that.
Yeah, quickly, I'm going to check in, guys. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can also follow myfoxhurricane.com. We're doing the latest forecasts and tracks on that, so use that. But I'm here with Mike Thomas, Caitlin Roth, our meteorologist in-house in the newsroom, so thanks for joining us. We're talking about Irma, but let's talk about the difference between Harvey and Irma. What are the major differences? Category?
Well, size and strength, first and foremost. Harvey was a Cat 4 at its strongest point.
Category 4, winds of 130.
Okay.
So this is winds of 180. So there's your difference in wind speed.
There it is.
Harvey, at the end of the day, with all the destruction it did, and it's probably the most destructive storm in United States history. Honestly, it could have done that if it was just a tropical storm, because the destruction came from the flooding. Harvey didn't move. That was the problem with Harvey. It sat there for 5 days, and it just grabbed warm Gulf moisture, and it dumped it on Houston. It dumped it on a lot of eastern Texas there. Irma doesn't have any indication that it's going to stall at all. So at least some good news there is that it will be on the move, but that brings other problems.
Yeah, including storm surge. I mean, the actual momentum of Irma moving across the Atlantic with this power behind it and making landfall somewhere in the U.S. is very unlike Harvey, which kind of just drifted and like plopped itself on top of Houston and rained itself out for days and days. So you didn't really see, you saw some effects of wind damage across southeast Texas, but nothing like an actual landfalling hurricane that's on the move and headed towards you. Also, Harvey, the remnants of what was originally Tropical Storm Harvey and then it became Hurricane Harvey, redeveloped very quickly, and there wasn't nearly as much lead time as something like Irma, in which we're watching weeks out, days out, the path, you know, everything, and it's like, you know, we're not even talking about a possible impact to places like Florida until second half of the weekend.
So let's talk about that on you guys' sort of radars. What you're watching, the direct effects specifically of some of those states: Florida, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi. We might have some viewers. You guys are probably on. Maybe you're feeling some of the effects, or you're bracing yourself for this. Leave the comments below if you are. But if we talk about specific states on the East Coast, what are you guys thinking in general? Anything come to mind?
Florida,
Florida's number one. I mean, it will be the state that gets it first, regardless of what track it takes. The first state to feel any effect will be Florida, and that's probably starting Saturday night, Sunday time frame for southern Florida.
Okay.
But there are huge differences in if Irma decides to take more eastward track, then you're talking about impacting coastal Georgia and the Carolinas, or a westward track would be more the Florida Panhandle and possibly into, I always forget, what state is right next to it? Is that Alabama?
Yeah.
Yes, Alabama.
I think so.
Well, I always remember that Mississippi's along the Mississippi River.
Right.
So
there you go.
That's my cheat code. I know, it's bad.
I just want to divulge that I have a geography block, and it's Mississippi and Alabama, and
they look similar.
I cannot remember which one's east and which one's west. It's like the one thing, I mean,
if you guys feel the same way, comment below.
I'm like, how many times have I looked at a map and I'm always like,
me too, when you memorized it as a kid.
Did you see during Hurricane Harvey that one news station that put out that it went viral? They posted all over the place. They mixed the states up on their map.
I didn't. That's bad.
Mississippi and Alabama?
Yep,
yeah,
Mississippi and Alabama. They got them backwards, and people ripped on them.
Oh, that's bad.
That's got to go through a lot of eyes to make it onto the air, and that's pretty bad. But maybe everyone has the same block I do. But anyways, the Gulf Coast threat seems lesser at this point than potentially an East Coast threat. Mike and I were just looking at the latest morning model off the GFS run, the Major American model, and that took it more up and along the East Coast, like kind of scraping along.
Matthew-ish. Yeah. If you're down in Florida, everybody remembers what happened last year, so Matthew-ish.
Right, but Mike's right. Florida, it's the closest state. It's sticking out. Like, it's going to feel whatever impacts there are first.
Right.
We think.
And honestly, this is just the wrong time of year for a storm like this, just because this is peak late August, early September. September 11th is the official peak day of Hurricane Day.
Which is next Monday.
Right, so we're a week away from when things should start supposedly quieting down, but we're also at the peak, and that's because of how warm water temperature. This is the warmest time of year for ocean temperatures because they always delay peak temps. So like your hottest time of year is July, but it takes time to warm the water.
Oh, right.
So the water temps usually peak about a month after land temperatures peak.
Okay, so are there any effects at all on the DC area?
Good question.
Yeah.
And that is really going to be determined by where Irma goes. You know, we're far away from Florida. We are far away from the Gulf Coast. We're far away from Georgia and the Carolinas. But these systems, once they do make an eventual landfall, this is saying that Irma doesn't go out to sea, which it doesn't look like it will. But if it were to be a U.S. landfalling hurricane, we usually feel some impacts eventually because the storm will probably travel northward and get caught up in the jet stream and, you know, bring some showers to our area, which the time frame on that looks a little bit.
That would be like next Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. I mean, at least we'll see some clouds.
Yeah.
We'll see.
At the very least, yeah.
There are kind of two options here. Either we won't see much. It'll kind of be like Harvey. So three options really. Either we won't see anything except for some clouds that come up if it is able to take sort of that westward track into the Gulf, and then it might go into the interior of the U.S., which would kind of keep it away from us. Then we might not see anything but clouds. If it goes straight up Florida, like some of the models were saying yesterday, then it will likely fizzle before it gets up here, meaning it's like what Harvey did here, where it's cloudy, we get a day of rain, on and off showers, it's kind of miserable. Worst case scenario here would it be if it goes eastward and is able to somehow landfall around the Outer Banks, North Carolina, and come straight north. If it heads west, if it landfalls inland towards the Midwest, then we're kind of we won't see the major effects. It'll be kind of showery.
Yeah, we could get some very heavy rain as a result. And that is a familiar track to this area, some landfalling hurricanes in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. I mean, they usually push further northward, and while they lose their strength and the wind speed, you still can get some flooding
Some
rains.
big time rains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be worst case scenario for us. is
Okay.
to get some pretty heavy
I'm
rain.
trying to think of what that might. I was looking at it the other day. I don't think it was Wilma. Maybe it was Wilma that came up. It hit the North Carolina border. and
Isabel
It came
did.
straight- Maybe it was Isabel.
remember
I'm thinking.
that one.
It might be
Yeah.
Hurricane Isabel. I'm thinking.
So
of.
Many of
many.
you probably do. Isabel was early 2000s. I can't remember
I
what year.
remember
But I
that.
think there was a ton of flooding because it kind of pushed up the Chesapeake.
Yeah.
I remember getting off school for it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Here.
Here. They canceled.
Yeah.
They canceled schools for that.
They will.
Some people kind of, you guys are, I'm reading your comments, still asking about Virginia, and let's recap a little bit. What we're talking about is what are we looking at right now in the Caribbean?
Hurricane
what's gonna
Irma, Category 5 storm. It is massive. It is incredibly strong with max wind speeds of 180 miles an hour. Perspective, the Cat 5 begins with wind speeds at 155. So this is
7.
157.
This
So
means-
this is over.
Technical.
Way over. Yes, this is way over.
Yeah, way over. There is no. Let's do this again. There is no
What?
such thing as
As
a
a Cat
Category
6.
6.
No Cat 6.
There is
yeah.
no. That's fake
I
news.
learned that today.
Yeah. Strongest ever in the Atlantic was 190 mile an hour winds. So this kind of gives you an idea of the scale. We are kind of in record territory here.
Mm-hmm.
They have had gusts. The hurricane hunters are out there dropping what we call radiosondes down through the storm to get wind speeds, and they have detected gusts up and over 200. Those are quick bursts of wind.
Yeah.
When we say 180 mile an hour winds, that's a 1 minute sustained wind. Almost like a gust, but it has to be sustained for at least a minute. And those winds are mostly just confined to the areas around the immediate eye wall. It does get kind of rapidly weaker as you spread out. But it's not, as far as hurricanes go, a big storm. It's only 350 miles across. I think Katrina was like 800 miles across. Even Harvey was a massive storm.
So bigger than that.
It was
Katrina
bigger than
way.
that. But the bigger ones require more fuel. And the Gulf is a big open area of warm water, and things tend to blow up there. These storms that come across the Atlantic like this tend to be of the smaller, like Hurricane Andrew. Everybody in Florida remembers Andrew 92. Did a ton of damage down there. It was the worst storm the state has ever seen. Small, compact little guy, but the small guys packed the punch.
Yeah, they got the rocket fuel in them, and so this one is no exception to that. It's incredibly strong, powerful, a lot of wind. It's moving west-northwest and approaching the Lesser Antilles, so places like St. Martin, Antigua, where else? Turks and Caicos, and then eventually Puerto Rico. That's a little bit further to the west. So it's got to move through the islands, and they're going to bear the brunt of the storm, while maybe not a direct impact from it, like a direct landfall. These are tiny little islands, but still the impacts of a Category 5 hurricane in their backyard. So that's moving through the islands tonight through tomorrow, and then after tomorrow, moving from Puerto Rico towards places like Hispaniola, Cuba, the
Tell you what,
Bahamian Islands.
Caitlin, take it for a minute. I'm going to go change a map, and we'll show everybody where the warnings and watches are. Right
That'd be
now.
great.
That's a good idea.
So is Puerto Rico sort of prepared for this type of thing?
You know, I think they are. They have. They've been under a hurricane warning today. You know, I think that they're in a state of emergency themselves. They issued that just like Governor Rick Scott did for Florida.
Right.
And I think that they're ready to make the necessary preparations. I mean, the thing about Puerto Rico, Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, they're used to this. They barely go a year without some sort of tropical threat. So they usually are good about having plans in place and doing what they have to do to prepare. So Irma, if there is a silver lining to this, formed last week, and so there's been a lot of lead time with the storm, and it's been moving incredibly slowly, which helps with figuring out the forecast and giving people a lot of lead time. So as it's been slowly traversing the Atlantic Ocean, it's been on track to move due west to some of these places, so they've had a lot of notice. So a lot of people, so this is a very different situation from something like Harvey, where 72 hours before landfall was just kind of showing up as reforming and becoming a threat to Houston, and that's not a lot of time. But when you have like a week plus, places like Florida, a lot of lead time. So anyways, yes, they are, the islands will kind of feel the effects first, and we'll hear about it, and we'll be able to assess, what kind of strength and position they were in for when Irma crossed over.
Yeah, and as Mike changes this map, guys, we can see another part of this. I want to tell you about myfoxhurricane.com. You can follow along for forecasts and tracking throughout this whole thing. So we were looking at Harvey this whole week, and now all eyes are on Irma. So the major differences right now between the two. Obviously, Harvey sort of stayed, like we said, stagnant on Houston, flooding, damage.
Yeah, Harvey was unusual in that it was less about a huge landfalling hurricane blowing into a city and tons of storm surge and wind damage, but instead more a rainstorm that got stuck over the same position, and for 5 days straight it poured rain. And so that's unusual. Usually hurricanes move, but this did not. It was stagnant, and so the flooding was just too much water in such a short amount of time. And Irma is more of your traditional hurricane that you watch move through the Atlantic. It's on the move, it's formed, we're watching it days, weeks out, and it's also stronger. It's Cat 5, so when it does eventually move into waters closer to the U.S., it'll have more of an effect as like a landfalling hurricane than just sitting over it with some rain.
And category means basically strength of the winds. Is that essentially it, or a lot of things?
It's based off the wind factor.
Okay.
Right? There are other ways to measure the strength of a hurricane. You have your central pressure is another one that everybody looks at, which is a kind of signal of whether or not the hurricane is gaining or losing strength. But for the most part, when we look at just raw power of the storm, we look at winds.
Yeah, but we'll watch the pressure. There's all sorts of records about lowest pressure ever recorded in a hurricane, because that will denote the strength of a storm too. So there's a lot of things we look at, but this is
which was Wilma, I believe, 2005, 882.
Good job, trivia with Mike Thomas.
So
I've been looking at this.
I love
this stuff all morning.
I love this trivia. Like, the Trivial Pursuit stuff.
Jeopardy for hurricanes. Yeah.
All right, let's look at our new map. Right?
Yes. Why don't you explain this, Mike?
Okay.
Yeah, here it is. So these are the watches and warnings that have gone up from the National Weather Service over the past, or National Hurricane Center over the past days. So that red you see are hurricane warnings, northern half of the Leeward Islands there, U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, and of course Puerto Rico. That means hurricane conditions imminent within the next 24 to say 36 hours. It's definitely sooner on the right-hand side of that track, later on the left. All the purple out for Hispaniola there, especially the northern half. Those are hurricane watches. And then Turks and Caicos, is that right, Kaylin? Turks and Caicos there under hurricane watches as well. Without a doubt in my mind, those will all be upgraded to warnings. Watches will eventually be expanded into Cuba, and then, given all modeling, watches will eventually be issued in the Bermudas and Bahamas.
The Bermudas.
Bahamas. Pretty close.
What's that?
Sam.
Bermuda?
Yeah.
Come on, pretty mama. Okay. Anyway,
they're very similar. Yeah.
The Bahamas and eventually Florida, without a doubt, as well. Just given the track of this thing.
That's a good map. That's cool. So watch is the worst. Warning is
warning's worse. Warning's bad. Warning is
worse.
It's just like tornadoes and severe thunderstorms.
That's right.
And sometimes people do ask this. So warning is like, hey, it's
gonna happen.
And watch is like, watch out.
It might happen. Yeah. Although sometimes it's just a timing thing. Like those watches will be upgraded to warnings, but it's just too far away. So they start out with the watch. The watch is kind of like the warning's coming soon. So
that's a good one.
But anyways,
so we're watching it.
Yeah, we'll watch. Unfortunately, the guinea pigs, the islands, we'll see what sort of effects Irma has over the next 24 to 48 hours as it moves through all the islands and then approaches Cuba and then eventually South Florida, we think. So we'll have a better idea of, the strength of this and where it goes. And it's a very narrow channel right there of water in between all these islands. So if its eye doesn't move over any of those islands, that's good news for any of the land masses because they're not bearing a direct hit, but it also could maintain its strength easier. Once these storms start to move over land, it causes friction and it usually weakens the strength of the storm. So
yeah, there are pros and cons with each there.
Yeah.
If it does have it, I mean, obviously we're not asking for this hurricane to hit anywhere. We don't want it to hit anywhere.
Right.
But if it does happen to take a southern route and travel over Hispaniola and travel over Cuba, that will help kind of weaken things as it will disrupt. Hurricanes are, as Tucker liked to describe them, sort of majestic, gentle giants. They don't like, well, not gentle, but majestic.
Right.
They don't like to be disturbed in their patterns. They're good over the flat ocean, but if they move over bumpy land, hilly land, and Hispaniola's got some high peaks, believe it or not, that can disrupt their structure and that can help weaken them. So if it takes a southern track there, it can help weaken. If it threads the keyhole and goes right up
through that channel,
through the channel without hitting any sort of land masses there, which is tough to do because there's a lot of them down there.
Then it gets worse.
Then not necessarily worse, but it may not weaken as much.
Okay.
There's Category 5 potential here as we even approach the Florida coastline because water temps there are above 85 degrees. But right now, all indications are that the land mass is going to interfere with the storm enough that it won't be a Category 5 as it approaches Florida. That being said, we went from, when I got in this morning, 130 mile an hour winds. Now we're at 180, and it's only been 6 to 12 hours with that. So
obviously a very serious thing happening down there, and it's to be taken seriously for sure. Quick recap for some of the people who are just joining us, guys, on Facebook or YouTube. Is this going to affect Virginia DMV at all?
Well, that is very far out, and we actually are a little unsure at this point about what sort of impact, if any, we will feel here. You know, in order for us to have an impact, we need that storm to head in our direction per se. A lot of the consensus has become clear that maybe Florida will be getting some sort of direct impact, or if not a direct hit, a very close call impact, whether it goes up the East Coast or the Gulf. And you know, so for us, that you start to talk about impacts as remnants of a storm that has weakened once it's crossed over land, and pretty similar to, I think, what we saw on Saturday from the remnants of Harvey is usually what you get in this area, some degree of clouds and showers and rain. And I can't really say for sure until we know where exactly Irma's going, when or where we would feel these impacts, but I do think we wouldn't even be feeling any impacts until later next week, like Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's a little far into the future. That is a week away.
Yeah, at least a week away here. For those watching, if some happen to be from Florida, you're looking at a weekend thing. The key day here, if there's like a day where you're like, when will you guys actually know if it's going in? Believe it or not, probably Friday, Saturday. Okay. Because that turn, it's eventually going to get caught up in some upper level winds and turn north. How fast it makes that turn and whether or not it turns kind of northeast or if it turns northwest will change the track completely depending on how that turn occurs. So that's the day you have to watch. But it's still, it's like weekends, Saturday night, Sunday for Florida. And then as you head north from there, like Monday, Tuesday. Here in D.C., it'd be like Tuesday, Wednesday, if it came up in our direction at all.
Okay, good to know.
But there is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of talk about models and paths and hurricane. And we do want to stress that up here in the D.C. area, we aren't looking at a direct impact from Irma, meaning a landfalling hurricane. That's incredibly rare and unusual to happen up here. Not that it's out of the question. We've, you know, in recent years, Irene and Sandy, we've seen tropical storms and hurricanes come all the way up here. But at this point, that's not a major concern. The bigger concern would be for areas along the southeast coast from the Carolinas down to Florida, up along the Gulf, at least for now.
And if for some crazy out of the woods region this thing was able to somehow come up and even try to turn into the DC region, water temperatures offshore here are much cooler, so that will disrupt. Heavy or cooler water is heavier air. Heavy air is harder to lift. That will disrupt the strength of the hurricane. It would not be a Category 4 or 5 if it came up here.
Yeah, because the cold water helps.
There's like a 5% chance of that happening. It's really low. We're super concerned with Florida. We're concerned with the Carolina coastline. We are concerned with the Gulf coastline from the, say, the Mississippi River east, with Florida kind of being like the bullseye at this point. But I don't want to 100% rule us out just because we're weather folks and we should never do that.
What was Sandy again? It was
it was Category 2.
It was also like, not to get totally detailed and technical, but it became kind of less of a tropical system and more of just a big storm that combined with an incoming tropical cold front. Again, this is getting way too technical, but it was called Superstorm for a reason.
That's what I was wondering.
Exactly.
It was a crazy combination of a whole bunch of things going right or wrong
to make that happen
at that time.
Yeah.
So
I remember that well.
This thing's probably not going to stand. See my weatherman talk.
Yeah, well, we're like lawyers. You have to be as vague as possible.
We hope
But at this point, I would say that while there may be some impacts, and you know, usually with tropical systems, there are impacts that eventually get up here, whether that be, you know, with flooding rains or just a nice little shower. But it's really too early to tell for us. But again, that would be later next week, and it would be to a far lesser degree as of right now compared to places like Florida. So,
awesome. Well, great, guys. Thanks for your comments. And if you guys need more details, that website right below in the comments, you can check that. We're going to keep it updated all day. Thanks, guys. So much detail.
Thank you.
And we'll be tweeting. I'm Mike T Fox 5 on Twitter and Mike Thomas Fox 5 on Facebook. Caitlin.
Caitlin Roth Fox 5. DC something. Caitlin Roth Fox 5.
Something.
Just
you can find her.
Oh, you'll find me. I never remember if I put the DC or not. Caitlin Roth Fox 5.
That's funny because it's different here with different people.
Fox 5, yeah.
So we'll have them on when we can, and we'll grab them in the newsroom, guys. If we're gonna end this on Facebook, but we'll catch you on our YouTube channel shortly. Thanks so much for joining us for this coverage. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, yep. Good luck, guys. We'll update you.
Yeah.
Don't panic. No,
we got days to go.
Yeah,
Many days. See ya.
Bye.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us here on the stream. We're inside the digital newsroom in D.C. I am Molly Nevola. We're going to keep following all this DACA stuff, guys. We had a lot of rallies and protests, marches, and they're really happening all over today. Right now, there's a presser in Santa Clara, California, regarding this. I'm going to split screen it for you guys and give you a shot of Denver right now, along with this press conference that we're going to listen into. I'm also just reading that there is a White House press briefing. It's going to be live. We're going to try to bring that in for you, hopefully if it starts on time, today at 1:30. Sarah Huckabee Sanders will be leading the White House press briefing inside the briefing room today at 1:30. So with that, guys, let's go over to these continued rallies and protests, one in Denver and then Santa Clara as well. There's a statement being made. We'll check in there.
Between. They are people who have worked in our community and lived in our community and participated. They pay taxes, they have jobs, they help the rest of the community live a productive and useful life. We here at the county are committed to provide all of the services that we possibly can to all DACA beneficiaries and their families. We think that they deserve all the constitutional rights and protections that any citizen has in our country. And we will fight to make sure that they have those rights protected. We have hired outside legal firms to protect their rights in court. We also have supported them with all of our departmental services, health, welfare, social services, and the like, and we will continue to provide those services. I'm quite confident that County Council will find a justifiable reason for us to end up in court challenging this rule, because DACA recipients, just like any citizen in the United States, have constitutional rights. Those rights cannot be taken away without appropriate legal fight. So we're in this for the long run, for the people, for the real people that will be hurt and the real families that will be pulled apart if this program disappears. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our Chief Operating Officer, Miguel Marquez.
Good morning. My name is Miguel Marquez, and I have the privilege of serving as the county's Chief Operating Officer. Earlier this year, on February 16th, when asked about DACA, Donald Trump said, quote, "We are going to deal with DACA with heart." Today's decision was made with heart, all right, but with a cold heart. Today's decision was an especially cruel one in which the president has turned his back on those brought to this country as children, those who have lived as our neighbors and friends, those who had the audacity to dream of a better life for themselves, their families, their communities, and their country, the only country they know. Today's decision delays the full execution of the program for 6 months. This 6-month delay is just as cruel. It's nothing more than a 6-month delay of execution for the children, families, and communities that have been so unfairly condemned by this president. A 6-month stay of execution of the most unfair life sentence that's ever been handed out to so many of our nation's best, brightest, and youngest friends and neighbors, relegating this incredible group of young dreamers to serve as fodder for a 6-month political battle between a dysfunctional Congress and a dysfunctional White House. With this decision, President Trump has broken his promise to deal with DACA with great heart. But this is just the latest in a series of broken promises. This broken promise is especially cruel because it will result in broken hearts, broken dreams, broken families, and broken communities. In his first several months of office, we've come to learn that this president can break a lot of things. But one thing he cannot break is our resolve to resist the injustice of his political agenda. He cannot break this county's resistance to his unjust call to have our local law enforcement work with his ICE agents. He cannot break our resolve to fight his unjust and unconstitutional actions in courts of law, where so far we won every legal battle. and he cannot break our resolve to stand with DACA youth of this county. So to all DACA youth, I want to be as clear as possible. The County of Santa Clara will be here for you, for your families, and for your communities. You can count on us to fight the president's unjust agenda at every turn. Together, we will build a more just and more inclusive society, and we, working together, will truly make America great again. Thank you, and I want to introduce Deputy County Executive David Campos.
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Smith, County Executive, our members of the Board of Supervisors, Miguel Marquez, the leadership of this county for making it clear throughout this process that we stand with our DACA youth. This issue is especially, on a very personal note, important to me. I came here, I was brought here as an undocumented child, and I was a DACA person before the term existed. So I know firsthand what it's like to live in the shadows of a country that is the only country you know, and you still feel that you are as American as anyone else. And I know that's the feeling that every one of these DACA recipients feel. I want to note a couple of things. First, reiterate what has been said by the county executive, that the County of Santa Clara, through the Office of Immigrant Relations, and I want to acknowledge Maria Love, who is the head of that office with her staff, they're going to be working between now and the next few months to make sure that every DACA recipient knows what their rights are legally. And even under the changes in this program, they still have an opportunity to renew some of their permits. So we're going to make sure that they have the assistance, the know-how to do that right. As was also noted by Jeff Smith, the county has already made a commitment to provide millions of dollars in legal representation to all undocumented people here in the county. And that benefit will be provided to those DACA recipients so that we make sure that every one of them, that their rights are protected. But the thing that I want these young people to know is that as horrible as this decision is, I actually think that this is, in many respects, one of those points in history where this president has just gone too far. I actually think that the elimination of DACA, from my perspective, will be seen down the road in the history of this administration as the beginning of the end. Because it really takes an extreme view of the issue of immigration to come to the point where you decide not to give people who are brought to this country as children, who only know this country as their country, the opportunity to give back to this country. You know, in the history of this country, there have been those seminal moments. Plessy v. Ferguson. You know, I think that this will be Donald Trump's Plessy v. Ferguson. It will be seen as a shameful act. And what I want people to know is that from this day forward, as the beginning of the end of this administration moves forward, that we in Santa Clara will play a critical role. We will play a critical role in fighting this on the trenches with every one of those DACA recipients, but we also will play a critical role in making sure that we challenge the legality and constitutionality of this action. And to the DACA recipients, Donald Trump has a lot of power as president, but he does not have the power to kill the American dream. The American dream is still alive. It's still alive here in Santa Clara, so long as we remain committed to fight to keep it alive. Thank you very much. With that, it is my honor to present someone who represents a very strong partner in the history of human rights and in the history of immigrant rights, and that's labor. And here to represent the South Bay Labor Council, the head of that council, and we are very grateful to our labor partners for their support, Ben Field.
Morning, everybody. My name is Ben Field. I'm the Executive Officer of the South Bay Labor Council, which represents 101 local unions. I'd like to address this morning's executive action from the perspective of economic justice. Of the 800,000 DACA recipients, 91% of them are employed. And I want to emphasize the fact that they are contributing to our communities in many ways, and one of those ways is that they are contributing economically. They are supporting themselves and they are supporting their families. If this repeal of DACA goes into effect in 6 months, which is something we all expect, that does not mean that all of a sudden those 800,000 dreamers are going to be gone from this country. It does not mean that those 800,000 dreamers are going to be gone from this economy. What it does mean is that about 720,000 new unemployed people will be created. This executive order is bad for the economy, and it is bad for American workers. Dreamers are contributing actively to this economy, and they deserve a chance to continue to do that. This executive order is morally wrong, and it is bad for the American economy. I want to thank all the previous speakers for their strong statements of moral support for those workers, and I want to introduce a dreamer who's going to be here, who's here to address you. Her name is Mitzia Martinez. Please welcome Mitzia Martinez.
Good morning, everyone. This is my second time talking on this subject. I woke up this morning to hear an announcement about DACA and the future of DACA. I don't think anyone should wake up in the morning to watch a video to see if they could keep their rights or not, their rights to work, their rights to be safely in this country. As you know, I'm a DACA recipient, a senior at UC Berkeley. I had plans to graduate, get a job, study for the LSAT, and perhaps go to law school. I believe as on this morning, those plans have changed. Ending DACA is taking away basic human rights, the right to work, the right to exist, and the right to live safely in this country. Let me tell you that I'm not surprised about the announcement, especially the person that it came from. This administration, along with the Attorney General, are very anti-immigrant, and they don't take us into consideration. DACA has made headlines in the past couple of days, past couple of weeks that, documented folks are a great contribution to this country, that we're great students, that we are brilliant. But what those reports forget, and what economic reports forget, is that we're human beings at the end of the day. We're far beyond more than the labor we provide to this country. If you stand with DACA today, you should stand with all immigrants. There's 11 million of us. There's only 80,000 DACA recipients, but there's 11 million of us in this country who fear their existence every day, but who still wake up in the morning, go to work, provide for their families, and are law-abiding citizens, regardless of what this administration may criminalize or say about us. DACA recipients, as brilliant as we are, and as brilliant as you say we are not brilliant alone. We come from generations of hardworking human beings who are strongly criminalized and excluded from immigration relief programs, such as DACA. We have the strength of crossing deserts just to come to this country and be targeted, discriminated, and separated from our loved ones. I represent and stand for all million immigrants today. I think today has been a very emotional day, and it's about to take on a battle that all 11 million immigrants will unite today for a common cause. My community is resilient, strong, and capable. DACA was not the beginning of our fight, and it will not be the end of our fight. Whatever happens in the 6 months, I will assure you that the undocumented community will stay strong and resilient. We will remain here, we are here, and we will not go anywhere. I'm not going to tell you that the fear goes away, because it doesn't, but the fear is only going to make us stronger. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mimi Hernandez. I represent the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Silicon Valley. Our mission is to maximize business and economic development by serving as an advocate and a resource. We urge the administration to sign legislation that protects the DACA recipients, which includes a path to citizenship for our dreamers, and ask the administration to end the indiscriminate practices of ICE. Fear destroys economic stability and business opportunities, we believe. Every year, our center trains and assists entrepreneurs in areas such as access to capital, business planning, improving their operations, getting their permits. Most recently, 21 immigrants completed a 12-week program, and a good number of them have began their business. In this county, you don't need to be a citizen to open a business. We extend our services through the county for any DACA immigrants that are affected with the current policies. We estimate that there are about 10,000 small and micro businesses in this county that have already been started by undocumented immigrants, and we have about 24,000 DACA recipients residing in Santa Clara County today. DACA immigrants are amongst the most innocent, though after listening to Matza, I also want to add that they are the most brave. It is ending DACA today was shameful, and it is destructive. In California, we are blessed to be home to more than 200,000 DACA recipients, and we stand with them at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Businesses will be affected as their ability to hire and retrain skilled talent will be diminished, and consequently, it will cost business owners $3.4 billion in turnover costs. Imagine the impact if 10,000 business owners and 24,000 DACA recipients were rounded up and deported from our county. How would the county operate?
Hey guys, if you're just checking in with us, we are following some of the protests and speeches going on, the rallies you can see in the bottom left corner of your screen regarding President Trump's decision to wind down DACA today. So Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced it this morning. We're going to play that out for you as well because we didn't actually play it on our stream for you guys to see. But this is live right here. You're looking at a rally, some speeches going on in Santa Clara, California, and also below me right here, this is Denver, Colorado. People are also outside the Trump Tower in New York City and right here in Washington, D.C., guys. And Tom Fitzgerald, who we had in this chair earlier talking about it, he's down there by the White House. We're going to see if we can get a live feed from him. He's kind of in and out of the crowd, checking out the march right here in Washington, D.C. So we'll look for that, and if we have that live, we'll bring that to you guys. Welcome to our stream here at Fox 5 Live inside the D.C. newsroom. We're going to check in with this a little further and then also bring you over to the White House press briefing, where this is sure to be a hot topic later today. They're slated for around 1:30, might happen at 1:45 or so. So we'll stay right here for now, guys. Thanks for watching.
Have never defeated our adversity. Trying times like today need courage and resilience. Our strength as a people is not tested during our best times, rather it's tested during our worst like today. And as dreamers, our current situation isn't our final destination. As a matter of fact, we're not just dreamers, we are fighters. Yeah. We stand on a platform of equality, and we push forth an agenda that's inclusive and that speaks for justice. Fear has never been a part of our process, and we're not going to start today. This is not the first time that we fight this battle, and it's certainly not the worst we've been through. Today, I'd like to urge dreamers across the nation to begin changing the discourse. Have some agency and go out and tell your story. Show the world the power behind our dream. We speak on love, we speak on compassion, and we speak on humility. That is who we are, and that is what we stand for today and always. Continue to resist in the ways that you know best. Continue to educate yourselves by contributing and lending a helping hand to those in need. By demanding equality for our LGBTQ communities, for our African American brothers and sisters, for fighting for women's rights. Be the activist, be the artist, be the doctor, be the lawyer, be one who makes a positive contribution to our economy regardless of what Washington says we are. Today, I pick up the torch of previous activists and anyone who has fought for the cause. I walk with a heart filled with determination, compassion, and inspiration. I walk in solidarity with all of you. Today, I am a DACA recipient that is unafraid. Together, we are strong. Together, we are one. Thank you.
It is my honor to introduce a recent hire here in the county, and we're very excited to have her here. The new leader for public affairs for the county of Santa Clara, Maria Leticia Gomez.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here. I am shocked and saddened, like many of you, by this morning's news of rescinding DACA. Voy a hablar en español. You got plenty of sound bites in English, and we want to give a chance to Spanish language media to have also sound bites if they need them. El condado de Santa Clara no está sorprendido, sí está disgustado por la eliminación del programa de acción diferida o DACA.
Okay, guys, we're going to switch it from here as she speaks to some of the Spanish media and go over to the actual announcement this morning, which we didn't get to play out on the show, but the Attorney General announced it this morning, and so we're going to bring you over to that for now and then head back over to this rally opposing this policy that protects the children of immigrants from staying here in the United States, working, studying in the U.S.
Aunque estemos
We are there to help you. Thank you very much.
I just want to close with a statement from Congresswoman Zolofgren, who's been just amazing on this issue and has been trying to work on immigration reform for years when the Republicans were running away from it. Congress must stop this mass deportation of innocent young people. Democratic lawmakers already stand united in our support for DACA recipients, as we do in rejecting the attempts to use them as props in a broader anti-immigration legislation. The DREAM Act of 2017, which I proudly co-sponsored, would grant them the legal status and path to citizenship they deserve. The only question is whether the Republicans will join on the right side of history. That's from Congresswoman Lofgren. Yeah, give her a hand. She's our fearless warrior. If there are any questions, we can do questions now, or people can do one-on-ones. What's your preference? Questions? One-on-ones. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank Supervisor Cortese and his staff for bringing us together. Thank you.
illegal aliens. Similar benefits.
Good morning.
Numerous occasions.
I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded. The DACA program was implemented in 2012 and essentially provided a legal status for recipients for a renewable 2-year term, work authorization, and other benefits, including participation in the Social Security program to 800,000 mostly adult illegal aliens. The policy was implemented unilaterally to great controversy and legal concern after Congress rejected legislative proposals to extend similar benefits.
In other words, the executive branch
on numerous occasions to this same group
legislative branch specifically.
In other words, the executive branch
authorize
DACA deliberately sought to achieve what the legislative branch specifically refused to authorize on multiple occasions. Such an open-ended circumvention of immigration laws was an unconstitutional exercise of authority by the executive branch. The effect of this unilateral executive amnesty, among other things, contributed to a surge of minors at the southern border that yielded terrible humanitarian consequences. It also denied jobs to hundreds of thousands of Americans by allowing those same illegal aliens to take those jobs. We inherited from our founders and have advanced an unsurpassed legal heritage, which is the foundation of our freedom, our safety, and our prosperity. As Attorney General, it is my duty to ensure that the laws of the United States are enforced and that the constitutional order is upheld. No greater good for the overall health and well-being of our republic than preserving and strengthening the impartial rule of law. Societies where the rule of law is treasured are societies that tend to flourish and succeed. Societies where the rule of law is subject to political whims and personal biases tend to become societies afflicted by corruption, poverty, and human suffering. To have a lawful system of immigration that serves the national interest, we cannot admit everyone who would like to come here. It's just that simple. There is that would be an open borders policy, and the American people.
Guys, just so you know, this is a live look at the Trump Tower in New York City. Outside of that, the protests going on, and showing you also the announcement from this morning. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, I apologize for some of the double audio. We're trying to work on fixing that as we play this out for you guys. But coming up shortly, guys, a quick look inside the White House press briefing room. We're going there next for the briefing, which is going to be live very shortly. We'll continue to play this speech out for you guys to check it out from this morning.
Our collective wisdom is that also denied jobs to hundreds of same legal and constitutional challenges that the courts recognized with respect to the DACA program, which was enjoined on a nationwide basis in a decision that was affirmed by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Fifth Circuit specifically concluded that DACA had not been implemented in a fashion that allowed sufficient discretion and that DACA was foreclosed by Congress's careful plan, close quote. In other words, the immigration law that Congress passed foreclosed this possibility of DACA. In other words, it was inconsistent with the Constitution's separation of powers. That decision was affirmed by the Supreme Court on an equally undivided basis. If we were to keep the Obama administration's executive amnesty policy, the likeliest outcome is that it would, too, be enjoined just as was DACA. The Department of Justice has advised the President and the Department of Homeland Security that the Department of Homeland Security should begin an orderly, lawful wind-down, including the cancellation
by allowing
those
same illegal aliens to take those jobs.
Acting
We
Secretary
inherited from our founders
has
and
chosen
have
appropriately to initiate a wind-down process,
which is the
this
foundation
will
of
enable the
our
Department
freedom,
of Homeland
our
Security
safety,
to conduct an orderly change and fulfill the desire of this administration
Americans
to create
by
a
allowing
time
those
period
same
for
illegal
Congress
aliens to
act
take those
should it
jobs.
so choose.
We inherited
firmly
from our
believe
founders
this is
and
the
have
responsible
advanced.
path. Simply put, if we are to further our goal
of strengthening the constitutional order and the rule of law in America, the Department of Justice cannot defend this overreach. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley, in testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, was clear about the enormous constitutional infirmities raised by this action. He said, quote, in his testimony, "In ordering this blanket exception, President Obama was nullifying part of a law that he simply disagreed with. If a president can claim sweeping discretion to suspend key federal laws, the entire legislative process becomes little more than a pretense. The circumvention of the legislative process not only undermines the authority and our prosperity. As Attorney General, it is my duty to ensure that the laws of the United States are enforced, so this is not a little constitutional order ending the previous administration's no greater good for the overall health and well-being of our republic than preserve all immigration policies should serve the interest of the people of the United States, lawful immigrant and native-born alike. Congress should carefully and thoughtfully pursue the types of reforms that are right for the American people. Our nation is comprised of good and decent people who want their government's leaders to fulfill their promises and advance an immigration policy that serves the national interest. We are people of compassion and we are people of law. But there is nothing compassionate about the failure to enforce immigration laws. Enforcing the law saves lives, protects communities and taxpayers, and prevents human suffering. Failure to enforce the laws in the past has put our nation at risk of crime, violence, and terrorism. The compassionate thing to do is end the lawlessness, enforce our laws, and if Congress chooses to make changes to those laws, to do so through the process set forth by our founders, in a way that advances the interests of the American people. That is what the President has promised to do and has delivered to the American people. Under President Trump's leadership, this administration has made great progress in the last few months toward establishing a lawful and constitutional immigration system. This makes us serving and strengthening and more societies where the rule of law is treasured are societies that tend to flourish and succeed. Economic societies where the rule of law is subject to political and enable our country to more effectively tend to become a society about our system of government and to assimilate them to the cultural understandings that support it. The substantial progress in reducing illegal immigration at our border seen in recent months is almost entirely due to the leadership of President Trump and his inspired immigration officers. But the problem is not yet solved, and without more action, we could see illegality rise again rather than be eliminated. As a candidate and now in office, President Trump has offered specific ideas and legislative solutions that will protect American workers, increase wages and salaries, defend the national security, ensure the public safety, and increase the general well-being of the American people. He has worked closely with many members of Congress, including in the introduction of the RAISE Act, which would produce enormous benefits for our country. Afflicted by corruption, poverty, and human suffering. There are many powerful interest groups who have a lawful system of immigration, and every one of them has a constitutional right to advocate their views. We cannot represent whomever they choose. It's just the Department of Justice does not represent any narrow interest or any subset of the American people. We represent all the American people and protect the integrity of our Constitution. That is our charge. We at the Department of Justice are proud and honored to work to advance this vision for America and to do our best each day to ensure the safety and security of the American people. Thank you very much.
So, guys, that was Jeff Sessions earlier this morning announcing this wind down of DACA in 6 months in March 18, a policy put in place by former President Obama, to give protections to the children of immigrants. So we're seeing a ton of immigrant children and advocates in protest today, including this shot right here, which is a live look outside Trump Tower in New York City. Here we go, see if we have sound on that a little bit. Yeah, we see some people with handcuffs and some stuff going down. So obviously this is a big rally here in New York. There's also a few in DC. We were hoping to get coverage throughout the day and the afternoon. And so we're watching for that in case we can get that in. We are live in the DC newsroom though, guys, and our politics reporter, Tom Fitzgerald, you saw him earlier. Fitz, he's out there near the White House. So if they do have some footage of that, we'll bring that back in for you guys live. If you guys are watching, please send that to us. So I'm here, our IT guy, hanging out, watching this protest. And like I said, we're waiting on the White House press briefing that's coming next, which we're sure to hear a lot more on this. Here's a little bump shot inside that briefing room right now, live look, as we wait for Sarah Huckabee Sanders to come out for that. And I know we haven't really seen this live in this sort of afternoon hour chunk lately, so this will be a good look at that. But for now, this is pretty powerful right here. This statement outside Trump Tower in New York. Yeah, we might have lost that shot like earlier. I know it went stale and we sort of just had like a still shot from one of these rallies, but we were tracking this all over the country today, guys. Denver, California, here in DC, but we haven't seen that yet besides earlier. And then this is New York City, but it looks like that is a still shot right now. So we'll go over into the White House press briefing room. Perhaps they've given a warning for when this is all going to start, but we're going to bring this live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're just joining us, welcome to the stream on YouTube. Checking in with some of the viewers, guys. Whole new look of our newsroom today. Let's bring that up so you can see. Welcome to our newsroom, guys. Our fisheye camera, as we call it. You can check it out. We got the assignment desk in the back. Some people kind of wandering around, kind of quiet during the middle of the day. But we were talking earlier with Fitz, talking all politics, obviously DACA, the talk of the day. And we're going to see how this all rolls out today and through the week and for the next 6 months, as there is a push for Congress to get something done immigration-wise to sort of counter this new wind down of this policy that President Obama put in place. President Trump is saying now, all right, we're going to slowly wind this down. 6 months is your marker. Congress better get something done. And Fitz, we were talking this earlier, Speaker Paul Ryan with like a neutral kind of statement, not really talking one side or the other. And obviously he is there at the head of Congress, so the Speaker of the House. So there's a big, he has a big part, I guess you could say, in this. Graham, thanks so much for your comment. I'm glad you like the new look. We are liking the casual kind of setting inside our newsroom. We're going to be amping it up even more, so don't forget to check in. We're going to be here as normal, Monday through Friday, during the middle of your day, and we're going to be having lots of guests in the newsroom for your viewing pleasure. So take a look here. That's inside the White House press briefing room. That's coming up next. I'm not quite sure what happened to our shot in New York City, but we're going to be seeing what comes down and bringing you all the live feeds that we have really from today. So we just played out Jeff Sessions announcing that decision this morning. Sorry for a little bit of the audio issue. We're still working on some of that. But we'll wait right here. A good update on Hurricane Irma this morning from some of our meteorologists. If you missed that, go ahead and check out our Facebook page. We're there on the feed. We have an article posted with all the details and also an awesome update from our meteorologists there. They sat right here with me earlier this morning. All right, guys, continue to chat with us on the live chat. Ask me any questions that you have. We're going to check into this briefing as we look around for more video for you throughout the afternoon. We'll probably end with the briefing, but stay right here with us for that.
Yep, I hear you just fine. Thanks. There we go.
Good afternoon. This morning, faced with the very real possibility of a potential immediate shutdown of the entire DACA program by a federal court, President Trump took the responsible and constitutional step of announcing that the administration will be phasing out the program over the next 2 years. Today's September 5th deadline was set by the plaintiffs presenting the administration with two and only two real options to choose from: the likely sudden cancellation of the program by a judge, or an orderly wind down that preserves the rule of law and returns the question to the legislative branch where it belongs. The president chose the latter of the two options. The president made the best decision in light of the fact that the system set up by the Obama administration in clear violation of federal law. President Obama even admitted this himself when announcing the program, calling it a temporary stopgap measure and calling on Congress to act. DACA was initiated after Congress explicitly rejected the same proposal in legislative form. In other words, President Obama didn't just suspend federal law, but implemented a policy Congress had explicitly rejected. There's a misconception that DACA primarily serves as a shield from deportation. This is misleading. DACA grants work authorization to nearly 800,000 individuals who are not legally authorized to work. DACA recipients whose average age is in their 20s were not an enforcement priority before, and they certainly won't become a priority now. The priorities remain the same: criminals, security threats, and those who repeatedly violate our immigration laws. The main effect of today's announcement is that work permits and other government benefits are being gradually phased out. But rather than leave DACA recipients and the men and women of immigration enforcement in confusing limbo while the DACA program was challenged by states in the same court that struck down another of the previous administration's unlawful immigration orders earlier this year, President Obama is laying out a responsible 24-month phase-out. President Trump. No permits will be expiring for another 6 months, and permits will remain active for up to 2 full years. The president was elected partly on his promise to deliver meaningful immigration reform that puts the jobs, wages, and security of the American people first. He is delivering on that promise every day, and he was put forward serious proposals to Congress that would responsibly end illegal immigration, prevent visa overstays, remove dangerous criminals, protect American jobs and wages, and create a merit-based system that grows our middle class. These are not just President Trump's priorities, they are the American people's priorities. For decades now, the American people, immigrant and U.S. born, have asked Congress to establish a lawful immigration system that protects our country. They've asked for strong, secure borders, they've asked us to protect American security and American jobs, and they've asked us to have compassion not only for those who are here illegally, but for unemployed American citizens, including millions of unemployed African American and Hispanic citizens who continue to suffer under a broken system. The president's DACA decision today brings us closer to a safer, fairer, and legal immigration system. Now that he has ended this unsustainable and unconstitutional program imposed by the previous administration, the president is calling on the men and women in Congress to fulfill their duty to the American people by truly reforming our immigration system for the good of all people. And with that, I'll take your questions. John?
Sarah, one question that went unanswered today was some 359 members of the DACA program enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2016. Their tour of duty would run standard 4 years, I would assume, but their DACA status would only last 2 years. If there's no fix by Congress before March the 5th, do you know what will happen to those people? Will they become ineligible to remain in the military, or will there be special dispensation? Is that being worked out?
We have confidence that Congress is going to step up and do their job. This is something that needs to be fixed legislatively, and we have confidence that they're going to do that, and we stand ready and willing to work with them in order to accomplish responsible immigration reform, and that would include DACA is certainly part of that process.
There are many Republicans who believe that getting something on the Republican side is not going to be easy, that the divisions that we see between the center and the right in the Republican Party will become only deeper. What gives you confidence?
With all due respect, I don't think the American people elected Congress to do things that were easy. They elected them to make a government that works, to work properly, and to work for American people, and that's their job. And if they can't do it, then they need to get out of the way and let somebody else who can take on a heavy lift and get things accomplished. Major?
Sarah, in the context of DACA as a piece of legislation, would the president be willing to sign only something that addresses that, or would it also need to have components of the RAISE Act? Would there need to be funding for the border wall? Or would he be willing to sign something that simply addresses DACA legislatively?
The president wants to see responsible immigration reform, and he wants that to be part of it. But again, we can't take just a one-piece fix. We've got to do an overall immigration reform that's responsible and, frankly, that's lawful. And that's what the president wants to see Congress do.
What will be the priorities for him in a comprehensive reform package? Would it be DACA, and what else?
And certainly to control the border, to improve vetting and immigration security, enforce our laws, and do things that protect American workers.
Let me ask you a question on North Korea. In the president's mind, is it an option to simply contain a North Korea that possesses nuclear weapons?
Certainly the priority of the administration is to have denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and it's also to protect American citizens. But certainly the priority would be that. Phil?
Sarah, you're talking about a comprehensive immigration fix from Congress in a span of 6 months, and much to the president's frustration, Congress hasn't been able to really do much at all this year. What gives him confidence that they're going to be able to act on immigration? Has he spoken to any congressional leaders since making this DACA decision?
He's spoken to a number of leaders, but hopefully, as you guys all know, they just came back from a 3-week vacation. I think that they should be rested and ready to take on some big challenges that America faces.
Why put the fate of the lives of 800,000?
Because it's Congress's job to legislate. It's not the president's job to create law. It's not. It's Congress's job to create legislation. I think that's something we all learned in 8th grade civics. I know I certainly did, and I think that every member of Congress should know that that is their duty, and we're asking them to fulfill it. It's pretty simple. I think that the American people elected them to do it. And again, if they can't, then they should get out of the way and let somebody else take their job that can actually get something done. Steve?
What consideration are you giving to negotiations with North Korea over the nuclear program?
Look, I think in terms of negotiations, we're looking at putting aggressive measures, both diplomatically, economically, and as we've said, all options are on the table, and we're going to continue to push for a safer and denuclearized Korean Peninsula, and that's the priority here. Jim?
It sounds like the president is saying, and you're saying, that if we're going to allow the Dreamers to stay in this country, we want a wall. Is that accurate?
I don't think that the president's been shy about the fact that he wants a wall, and certainly something that he feels is an important part of a responsible immigration reform package.
Can I ask you one follow-up question? Why did the president not come out and make this announcement himself today? Why did he leave it to his attorney general? It's his decision. These kids in their lives are on the line because of what he's doing. Why not have him come out and make this
It's
call?
in large part a big part of the legal process. This was deemed illegal by, I think, just about every legal expert that you can find in the country, including many of Obama's own attorneys, said that this was not lawful program.
Right.
And therefore, it would be the Department of Justice to make a legal recommendation, and that's what they did. Matthew?
Thank you, Sarah. Would the quick question, yes or no, and then a follow-up. Would the president sign a standalone DACA extension?
Again, I've addressed this. The president is hoping to work with Congress on responsible immigration reform, and I laid out the priorities that the administration has on that front.
So the president's voiced, and you voiced some objections to the constitutionality of DACA. Where does the president stand on the program itself?
I think that in the answers that I've given is that the president has been, and I think part of the reason that this is complicated and one of the reasons he's wrestled with this back and forth in large part is because this is not an easy one, and certainly something where he wants to be able to make a decision with compassion, but at the same time you can't allow emotion to govern, and this has to be something where the law is put in place, and it's something that he would support if Congress puts it before him.
He would support it if it came with, I'm just trying
Again,
to get the
responsible
specifics. Does it
immigration reform. We can't just have one tweak to the immigration system. We need really big fixes and big reform in this process, and we've laid out the principles that we feel are important in that. John Decker.
Thank you, Sarah. Is this a position? What?
Sorry, John Decker.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, I
The
looked down.
president, as recently as February, had expressed sympathy for the DACA recipients. Today, we heard in a statement from House Speaker Paul Ryan, who said that these so-called dreamers have done nothing wrong. Was this a difficult decision for the president to take this drastic action, given what he said as recently as February? And does he agree with House Speaker Paul Ryan that these individuals, 800,000 individuals, have done nothing wrong?
I think largely yes, and that's why I said it was one of the things that the president wrestled with this decision all throughout the weekend. So I kind of addressed that, so I think that's pretty clear.
It was just this weekend that he wrestled with it? It wasn't leading up to it?
Well, no, I mean, I think we've been clear throughout the process. There wasn't a final decision made until over the weekend because of the back and forth and the complexity of the issue and the ability to make the right decision and allow Congress to actually do their job and provide a fix instead of just stopping the program. And that was a big point for the president. Jordan?
Thanks, sir. I want to drill down a little more on what you mean when you say the president wants to act regarding compassion with regard to these DACA recipients. Does that mean offering them a pathway to citizenship?
I think it means providing a more permanent solution that's done through the legislative process, done legally and responsibly, unlike the previous administration.
A permanent solution, does that mean you're like giving them legal status legislatively? Like, what is the permanent solution that
I think that's something we want to work with Congress to determine exactly what that looks like, but there has to be, something needs to be done. It's Congress's job to do that, and we want to be part of that process and make sure that there is a fix put in place and that this isn't ignored like it has been for the last 5 years.
If Congress doesn't get it done by the March 5th deadline, considering the president's personal feelings about these DACA recipients, would he consider giving them additional time to get a solution passed?
We'd like to have confidence that Congress will actually do their job. We're going to ask that they do that and that they allow us to work with them and be part of that process. But again, if Congress doesn't want to do the job that they were elected to do, then maybe they should get out of the way and let someone else do it. Stephen?
This morning, he repeatedly referred to DACA recipients as illegal aliens, and at one point he intimated that hundreds of thousands of Americans did not get jobs that were taken by DACA recipients. Does the president share that view?
I think that it's a known fact that there are over 4 million unemployed Americans in the same age group as those that are DACA recipients, that over 950,000 of those are African American in the same age group, over 870,000 unemployed Hispanics in the same age group. Those are large groups of people that are unemployed that could possibly have those jobs. But again, we're looking for fixes. We're not looking for complaints, but we're looking for solutions, and that's our focus moving forward.
Statistics with the idea that hundreds of thousands of people, if the president gets what he wants, would achieve legal status. How do you reconcile those two competing interests?
Well, I think one of the first things is the president is looking to create a whole lot more jobs in America so that it addresses both problems. There's a reason he's focused largely since day one of taking office in creating a better market for businesses to create jobs, to hire more people, higher wages. He's gotten rid of over 800 regulations that have helped do just that. 1.2 million jobs have been created since he came into office, and every single day we're looking for more ways to grow that number. And so we're doing our part to address and create an environment that allows people to have more jobs, and we're going to continue doing that. Kristen?
The president vowed to treat dreamers with, quote, great heart. How is this move treating them with great heart?
I think by allowing an orderly process to take place. You know, there's a lot of people that I've seen attacking the president for not showing the level of compassion that they feel like he should. To me, the most heartless thing that I've seen all day today is that Democrats like Nancy Pelosi are using this decision today for fundraising while the president's trying to fix this situation. They are politicizing an issue instead of actually doing their job. If they would spend less time fundraising and more time focusing on solutions, we wouldn't even be in this problem in the first place.
On the president's decision, where all of this stems from, Dreamers, supporters of Dreamers say this is cold-hearted. You're leaving the future of 800,000 people uncertain, up in the air. What's your message to them?
It's not cold-hearted for the president to uphold the law. We are a nation of law and order. And the day that we start to ignore the fact that we are that, then we throw away everything that gives these people a reason to want to come to our country. If we stop becoming the country that we were envisioned to be, then we throw away what makes us special, which makes America unique. This president's not willing to do that. The previous administration was. This one isn't. But we want to have real solutions. We want to have laws that address these problems, but it's Congress's job to legislate, not the president's. And we actually want to uphold the Constitution, and I think people across this country should be celebrating the fact that they have a president that is standing up and upholding the Constitution as he was elected to do. Margaret?
I'd like to ask you about North Korea, but quickly on DACA. Is the president committed to honoring the will of Congress, essentially whatever Congress passes on DACA, or does he reserve the right to veto a DACA fix if he feels that it doesn't kind of holistically do what you're talking about, a bigger picture thing that touches on some of these?
As I've said, we want responsible immigration reform, and that would be part of that package and part of that process.
So on the North Korea, if I could just ask. Vladimir Putin has said that he doesn't believe that sanctions are going to work at all against North Korea, and I'm wondering whether the president himself is coming around to that perspective, or whether he still believes sanctions can be effective, and if he has any plans that you could share with us to talk with the Chinese president or the Russian president himself.
Look, we've been clear about what our priorities are, that now is not the time for us to spend a lot of time focused on talking with North Korea, but putting all measures of pressure that we can, and we're going to continue through that process. We've also said that everybody, including Russia, including China, need to do more to address the threat. This is a global threat, and everybody needs to take part in putting pressure on North Korea. And as we've said many times before, both Secretary Mattis and the President, that all options are on the table, and we're going to continue to keep them on the table until we get the results that we're looking for.
Sarah, the President has said that the DACA recipients should rest easy. He's also said on several occasions that he loves them. Is he giving them his personal assurance that at the end of 6 months they will not be deported?
I think he is giving Congress the ability to do their job. I've said that earlier.
That they should rest easy.
Look, the President gave the ability for us to have a 6-month process for Congress to actually step up and fix this problem. And they certainly have the ability to, and certainly should take that opportunity.
One other question about during the other immigration moves that the administration has made, you've made the argument that the President's powers over immigration are very, very broad and unquestioned. Why in this case does he feel he can't do anything by himself and he has to turn it over to Congress?
That was a specific statute within the Constitution that allows the President to take action to protect Americans. These are two very different things, and certainly not apples to apples. John Gizzi.
Thank you, Sarah. 2 questions on DACA.
Two-question Tuesday.
Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, a close ally of the President's, denounced the decision because of the 6-month delay in it and said there should be no phase out. It should have been implemented immediately. What's your response to that criticism from a strong supporter and ally of the President?
I think our response is pretty clear. The President made a decision, and we feel very much that it was the right one.
The other thing is that you talk about 4 million jobs that could go to other people. Has the President ever discussed this part of DACA with some of the leaders of organized labor to try to involve them in the process? President Trump of the AFL-CIO, President Hoffa of the Teamsters, and others that they work with.
I'm not sure about specific conversations on that exact figure, but I do know that he has had conversations with individuals and relevant stakeholders in this process on both sides that know that that is an issue, whether DACA existed or not. The fact that there are 4 million people in this age group that are unemployed, and certainly why creating a better job market is a priority for the administration. Francesca.
Thank you, Sarah. I wanted to follow up on what Jim asked. I don't know that we heard back here the rest of your answer. You said that the reason that Attorney General Jeff Sessions put out the earlier statement on camera was because it was a legal argument. But a lot of what we've been talking about in here is a legislative argument. Why have we not heard from the President directly on this today? And can we expect to hear from him later today on this?
You have heard directly from the President. He issued a pretty lengthy statement directly from the President.
Why was it Attorney General Jeff Sessions that went on camera when the President hasn't went on camera to make this case today about what a big heart he has and how compassionate he is and how he wants Congress to take legislative action on this to essentially save DACA?
The President's spoken about this numerous times in the past, but at the same time, this was a legal issue because there was a court decision that had to be made with a timeline not placed that the administration created, but a timeline that was created by the attorney generals in those states that were forcing this issue and this decision to take place by today. It was a legal decision, and that would fall to the attorney general, and that's why he would be the one making the announcement. Peter.
Enrollees in the DACA program?
I believe he has had several conversations with enrollees and those that have been part of the program.
Can you tell us anything about that and what context and what have you got out of those conversations?
Look, again, I think that the President's goal was to talk to a lot of people on both sides of the issue and, one, do what it takes to uphold the law, uphold the Constitution, but also allow Congress to create a permanent solution and fix the problem, which he's done by allowing for that 6-month period.
Conversations recently as part of this recent deliberation?
Again, I'm not sure on the exact timeline, but I know he has had many conversations with people on both sides of this issue. Certainly people that support keeping it as is and those that support getting rid of it. Right. Again, like I said, I know had conversations with people that have been part of the program. Catherine.
Sir, can you
you said the president wrestled with this decision all weekend. Can you walk us through any of the process he went through to get to this? When did he make this decision? Who was he consulting with? So how this came about?
Yeah, he made the final decision over the weekend, and as I said, he spoke to many relevant stakeholders and individuals that support a variety of positions on this program.
Can you tell us anything about the meeting today, the Big Six? What are you expecting out of that? Is there anything you're hoping to get out of that?
We'll continue to keep you guys posted. I think the ultimate goal is, as Congress is coming back into session, to talk about some of the big priorities, certainly tax reform, immigration reform, among many other things that are going to be on the agenda for the fall. No. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
The president.
I'll go here and then I'll come back to you.
The president's basically told Congress to do this, but he hasn't written any legislation similar to how he approached.
I didn't know it was the president's job to write out specific details of legislation. I think that's
other presidents
exactly
with
what
their major initiatives have taken a greater role in helping to craft that legislation. They found friendly allies in Congress to actually be the ones to propose it, but this president has not. Why has he made that shift? And does he think is he reconsidering it in light of the fact that some of the other major pushes he's tried to make have not been successful?
We've laid out detailed principles, and we have worked with members of Congress on specific pieces of legislation, and we'll continue to do that.
Quick international question. The situation in Myanmar is quickly escalating into a major humanitarian crisis. Has the president been briefed on the situation in Myanmar, and if so, is he planning to speak to any of the leaders in the upcoming meeting about this situation?
I know this is something that we're monitoring closely, but I'm not aware of any specific conversations that are planned at this time. But as always, in calls like that, we will keep you guys posted and put a readout after. Cecilia?
The president says that Dreamers won't be a priority for enforcement, but that's not a guarantee of protection. Is this White House willing to offer one?
Those are certainly, again, they're not a targeted priority, but the goal here is that Congress actually fixes the problem, and then that isn't an issue. And so that's the focus over the next 6 months, is making sure that something takes place, that Congress does their job, and a real solution is implemented.
But is there a way to put this in writing so that these 800,000 people who are very fearful of ending up in a country that they don't know have some guarantee that in fact they won't be deported in 6 months?
I think that the statement that the president put out earlier today lays out what the priorities are and lays out what the focus of the administration is, and that if they are not targets, they are certainly not priority targets of this administration. They weren't before and they won't be now. And again, Congress has 6 months, which is a pretty long time to get something done, and we hope they do, and there's a solution in that so that this isn't a problem moving forward. Yeah.
I was wondering, you mentioned that the president had spoken over the weekend or in recent days to various stakeholders. We had talked to the Attorney General's office in Texas, and they said they did not get a heads up or any, nobody conferring with them about this. Did you all talk to the 10 states, and are you positive that they are not suing?
I know that various members of the administration have been in contact with individuals in those states. I'm going to wrap here, but I have one note to.
So, wait,
I have one thing I'd like to just add. The president will be announcing the donations that he will be personally making to the various charities, and thank you to those of you that have submitted. We had several people put in submissions, and he'll be doing that tomorrow. And again, I know there were a lot of questions over the weekend. That will be a personal donation of $1 million from the president to various organizations and charities, many of which came from this room. So thank you again for that. Hope you have a good day.
Was the DACA decision a Christian decision, Sarah?
Oh my goodness. Lots of questions there for Sarah Sanders. Guys, that was the White House press briefing live from the room there, and you can see the shot inside. We're going to try to bring that to you live every time we have it, so stay here with us here on Fox 5 Live, on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook channel as well. And thanks so much for joining us here on Facebook. All right, guys, we are back in the newsroom. Thanks for joining us. If you just caught that, that was the White House press briefing inside the briefing room, and we were kind of doubling up the shot with some of the protesting and the rallies in Denver, Colorado. And this is another one in California right now. So this is a live look in California. We're taking you kind of all across the U.S. today for a ton of these protests and marches with immigrant children, immigrants, and advocates for them. Of course, talking about and protesting the decision of President Trump to kind of wind down this decision for the next 6 months. So this is a live look right now at this. If you were on with us earlier as well, you probably caught our meteorologist talking about Hurricane Irma, which is brewing a Category 5 in the Caribbean. We're going to have them on a lot more this week and more coverage of that and updates. I'm just hearing now that we're getting in an update from the governor of Florida, I believe. Yeah, Rick Scott is going to be updating on Hurricane Irma in just a second. This is a look down there. Not quite sure when that is slated to begin. But if you are noticing a little bit of a change, you're checking out our newsroom here, guys. This is our new digital studio look, and you can see behind me, it's a little quiet right now, but we're going to have a lot more to come for you guys this week and onward. A lot of you guys are commenting on the new look, so thanks for noticing and for checking it out. Yeah, we're going to have a lot more contributions and information from everybody in the newsroom, some of our top reporters and anchors, our weather meteorologists, of course, and just a lot of interaction in the newsroom. So we hope that you've enjoyed this look. And I think with that, we're going to close it down for today, guys, but a lot more to come this week, of course, following these protests, these rallies, everything related to DACA. We'll have Tom Fitzgerald Fitz in here again to talk about that. And we'll be tracking Hurricane Irma as well. As Mike Thomas was saying earlier, we can look to Saturday for being the big day to kind of watch which path that hurricane is going to take up, possibly on the coast of Florida, and where it's going to go, if there'll be any rain or wind or things to look out for in the DMV area. So if you're watching from here, I know you're interested in this area. So a lot more to come on Fox 5 Live, guys. Here you're going to see more in my little fisheye camera, and we'll have a ton of guests on for you guys as well. So as always, comment it up, chat with us on the chat, and you can comment below when we're on Facebook as well. We'll have all our web stories updated on fox5dc.com. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all those things that we update as much as we can on your phone, because maybe you're watching on your phone. It's as easy as a click. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, it'll pop up when we're up during the day. So typically I'll be on at 11:30, and we'll go into the afternoon. So once more, guys, a live look at what I think is coming. Governor going to be updating on Hurricane Irma. We'll have more updates for you on our website as well. And then the protest. We unfortunately didn't get any in from DC. We thought we had a live cam down at the White House. Unfortunately did not get that live shot in like we wanted to, but got a ton of rallies from across the country for you guys to get a little bit of a taste of what's going on in that regard. So more to come tonight as things kind of blow up to a head. We'll have more on our evening shows and on our website as well. And with that, take it back in here, live look inside our new digital newsroom, inside the newsroom, guys. I am Molly Nevola. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow on Wednesday. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll leave you with a shot of the White House where we just were for you guys to check it out. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.